Mr. Sandman says, hello, ACG from the Fallout London team. Well, hello to you guys. We're going to talk about mods. That's actually one of the things we want to talk about today is mods and mod expectations from gamers, how to feedback correctly to mod makers where, you know, mod makers don't have the sheer amount of just teams available for QA, and so how do you positively feedback to teams without, you know, just absolutely attacking them, especially if it's free stuff?
I think something happened. You froze and we froze.
You guys froze. I'm here.
I think we're good now.
We're good for me, yeah, but you guys are frozen in place. Now, there we go. Now you guys are back. Look at that. It's magic. This is way different than it used to be where it just freeze and never come back. But the first thing I want to do is find out what these guys have been doing throughout the week. So let's go to Silver first. What have you been playing? What have you been enjoying? Have you been reading anything, listening to anything?
Reading comic books or graphic novels as often as I can. Also, still playing Aliens Dark Descent. And inspired by Johnny, I started replaying SnowRunner.
Hell yeah.
SnowRunner's awesome. If we freeze, guys, just continue with us. We're just going to keep going because I have no clue exactly what's going on. It looks like it's a Zoom issue. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So the best part is it looks like Silver's like getting ready to give somebody the world's biggest high five. He's like, boom. Yeah, I don't know why. You know what? You guys want me to, if it goes on again, I'll close this particular room down or whatever it's called, Zoom, and then pop you guys back up. Sure. What about you, Johnny? What have you been playing?
I've been playing just a lot of SnowRunner, a little bit of League of Legends, but mostly SnowRunner. There's a lot to do in the game, and it's really enjoyable moment to moment. A nice chill game for after work. Well, I say chill, but it's actually weirdly stressful too. You know, you're trying to
weirdly stressful.
It can also be rage-inducing sometimes.
Yeah, you're trying to like carefully navigate, and you're doing great for 30 minutes, and then you tip over, and you're done. You have to completely restart the route, unless you have a friend nearby to help you out.
Or if you're on hard mode, you have to get another truck to go over there and pick up the truck that takes over.
Of course, you probably play in hard mode.
When I went back, I tried starting it up, but there are a couple of things with hard mode that I find really annoying, like the fact that you can't actually skip time in it. So you're stuck with, like, if it's the middle of the night or morning or whatever time it is, you're stuck having to just deal with that. That's one aspect of it that does annoy me.
Also, Johnny, what are you going to be streaming this week?
Probably SnowRunner. It's been what we've been doing, and I've been like listening to music and doing like music requests for people and stuff. It's been kind of like the trucker life, you know, you're just listening to some good music and hitting the road. Yeah, just.
What time is that stream, by the way, for people?
So tomorrow, Johnny plays live on Twitch at 9 a.m. EST time. That's 6 a.m. KARAK Standard Time.
Indeed.
Crack at dawn.
Yeah, ask Crack at dawn for me. So if you guys get a chance, jump by, check out Johnny Plays Live. He'll be streaming that. Hopefully it won't be as rage-inducing as it sounds like it can be. I think it's also, it is rage-inducing, but there's something I get out of that game. It's just a different...
Absolutely. For sure. It's just like Johnny touched on, when you've been playing for like 29 minutes and then all of a sudden you hit one rock and your car tips over.
It's over.
Yeah. It's done.
But it is satisfying how you plot your own route. That's why I compared it to Death Stranding. That was really the only thing about it that's like...
Yeah, I mean, really, I think at its heart, it's an engineering game. It's a problem-solving game.
Yeah.
More really than it is
You need the right truck for the right job, right? You need the right approach, the right wheels, all that.
Yeah. And the consistent scanning of the locations and the ground, trying to figure out where everybody is, or where everything is, where you need to go. Can you ford this river? Can you not?
I will say, though, like going back to it, I was reminded why I left it, because I do think it has some of the worst level gating I've seen of content. Particularly early on, where like you start with really crappy tires for your trucks and you can't upgrade them until significantly, like you've leveled like
until later
six
on.
levels or so.
Right.
Did you start getting even halfway decent tires for the trucks? And I think that's a little harsh. But like it does provide for a very, very rough early experience in the game. But that's really sort of my main gripe with it.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I feel like there's some stuff that the game could do better. Maybe have some more difficulty settings where you could adjust some things, you know, sort of throw some stuff out there.
So you can actually,
fun.
as a New Game Plus, they actually allow you to jigger around with the difficulty settings and set them the way you like them.
Yeah. I don't know why that would be locked under a New Game Plus, because I feel like a lot of people who would want to jump in wouldn't want to jump into the New Game Plus kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I totally know what you mean.
The New Game Plus always sort of confuses me when you look at it. Like, I'm not quite sure why they would go with any kind of adjustments for difficulty and stuff for New Game Plus, especially because you're wanting people to engage in the game and in the first little bit. You want to have people jump in there, and it's always just such a weird one. This week I've been playing EDF6. So that one is odd. EDF6 has it's one of the outrages we're going to discuss this week. So EDF6 has some issues. It's got a dual account system. Unfortunately, you need to have your Epic account, and have it all, connected, and that's caused people all kinds of angst. You could say it's review bombed, but every time I say it's review bombed, people say that's just feedback, and I however you want to say it, it just sort of is what it is. But it's definitely a situation that we're starting to see. Helldivers had it. Remember, Helldivers had their big issue with the dual account systems. And Rogerio, I was talking to him in Discord, and he was saying, well, I feel like, possibly in the future this is going to continue. And I was like, it just feels like to me that that people are seeing that these are an issue, and they're getting the instant feedback. And why would they dive into that instant feedback? Especially because it is, you are able to go on there on Steam in particular and just leave your feedback right away that, hey, this has an issue. But my problem isn't with that. So EDF6 is astoundingly bad looking. And it's not that we hear this stuff all the time. It's always looked that way. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, right. That's the problem.
That is the problem. And we're now at a
some
point.
People say it actually looks worse than EDF5.
I believe it truly looks worse somehow than EDF5. I do. I was looking at it out loud saying, like, I cannot understand how it looks like it looks even in last gen, but certainly in this gen. The number of enemies they send you, all of this kind of stuff is crazy. There's all of these things that you can do in it. There's a ton of weapons, there's new enemies, old enemies. But I got to tell you guys, man, as I'm playing it and I'm just seeing people explode and all this stuff, it is interesting to me that a game like that doesn't get held to any criteria for improvement of graphics, where other games do. At some point, they're not asking for a small amount. This is not a $9 game. But at some point, even if I was a fan, I would look at any game I'm a fan of, and unless it was a geometric pattern game like Tetris or something, and Tetris had Tetris Effect, which is one of the best looking games, at least artistically, we've seen in a long time. I just don't understand how it's continually ignored, because it's not just that. It's the collision detection. It's the animation.
Right.
It's everything. It's the way it plays. It's all along everything about the way this game functions is fucking ancient. I mean, I'm telling you guys, if you told me that was running on an emulator, I would straight up just say, I do not disbelieve you. I mean, it's legitimately that poor graphically. And it stuns me, man. I mean, I just don't understand. And you've got, people who say, oh, it's a B-level story, so the voices are supposed to be bad on purpose. I get that. But they're also bad in sample. You can hear the scratchiness. You can hear the terrible mics. You can do a B-level game with your B-level story with higher fidelity,
audio quality,
with
right.
audio. Exactly. And it frustrates me. So I told people, I was like, unless there's been unless you really need this game, I would say, and unless you really know what you're getting into, it also has frame pacing issues out the yank, man. They're really bad. It's a game that only sells to its fans. But at some point, if I was a fan, I would still say you're no longer selling to me.
I think, like in the context of Helldivers 2 releasing this year, it's become an even harder sell.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? Yeah, it's a harder sell. And as somebody who didn't touch much of Helldivers 2, I luckily didn't go into it with a comparison there. I went into a comparison with the last couple I've played, and there's just no growth. What were you going to say?
I haven't played 6, so I can't really speak to it. But I think your points are fair to the series in general. It's a series that I like. I would actually make its most direct comparison to like Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah.
In the sense that they share a lot of those sort of drawbacks, where Dynasty Warriors was also always a series that never really looked all that great graphically.
Right.
It always looked like a few steps behind sort of current gen. But what you got in exchange for that was just this sheer amount of like enemy models and stuff on screen, and the action going on. And you had to make sort of, also controls weren't always super tight for the combat and stuff. Like there were a lot of like minor like drawbacks to that game that you wouldn't necessarily tolerate
in other titles,
in other games. But they sort of become woven into the tapestry, I guess, of what the game is and the feel of it, to where players become attached to it. Kind of, I guess, maybe in the same sense that they get attached to a kind of schlock with films. Maybe in that sense, but I think that there's something to that, where we know that it's something that we wouldn't necessarily tolerate in other places, but here it's part of a sort of whole that creates something that's unique, entirely unique for what it is. Because there isn't anything, I mean, you can compare it somewhat to Helldivers, but even then, EDF is sort of uniquely its own thing. There isn't really anything like EDF out there.
Except for EDF 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Which is exactly like.
And it reminds me of.
I mean, also the fact that we haven't even gotten a new class. It's still the same for classes.
It's still the same. Yeah, it's still the same. It's still everything's the same, man. And while I agree with you, and weird enough, Dynasty Warriors is the first thing I thought of when I saw it. I do feel that Dynasty Warriors, almost every one of them, not all of them, does add things, whether it be classes or they take an IP from another.
And they did try to go open world with 9.
And they tried to go open world. You could also say Rise of Ronin tried to go towards Dynasty Warriors. I'm just joking. That's a diss on Rise of Ronin. But, you just look at these, and it's stunning to me that their level, especially when we compare them, to me, a lot of times when I look at it, I'm like, even the review for this is weird, because it's just like, well, if you're accustomed to this super low level of quality, then even then I feel like I got ripped off a little bit. I just feel like we're now, because I am somebody, you know me, I've enjoyed a couple of the EDFs, not all of them, but I think I enjoyed 4. I think I liked Iron Rain more than most people, but that's because I remember they changed the graphics and tried to go a little bit higher level on the graphics there. So yeah, it was just one of those things where I was like, man, it's difficult to even review, because you're almost reviewing something that isn't.
Also they outsourced Iron Rain as well, I think.
They did, yeah, they did. But yeah, it reminds me of a fanfic, is what it reminds me of. Like it's sort of
it is just an iteration of the same thing over and over. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird.
And like you said, that is catering to the specific crowd that's really what they want. They want that. They really just want 100 more missions to play through.
Yeah. It is funny though to look at this game and say to myself, with no irony, that NFL games each year iterate better than this does.
Yeah.
Right.
And I find that
even to the
sad
level
because
of the menus.
Even to the level of the menus.
Yeah, the menus are crunchy as hell. Like,
oh, dude, I can honestly, legitimately say the level in NFL is masterwork compared to this when it comes to each iteration. Which, yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird, but there's your game. It's out there. You can get it. It's got a dual sign in, which I know is not pleasing people, but it is what it is.
No, that is one reason I probably won't be getting it, because I still don't have an Epic account.
Right, yeah, and it's one of those ones that forces you to have it, so it always sucks to be forced in that kind of stuff. Yep. Absolutely hate it, because when you get one of those things, even if you do have another account, I've been one of those people that have had one system be working, one account system be working, one not. So it's like now you got to hinge on two accounts being working at any one time, or two things working at any one time.
The chances of like, oh, okay, now that 2FA is not working and I need to go troubleshoot that, instead of playing the game.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tons of practical little issues.
Moving on from there, also Stalker 2 got delayed. No surprise. I mean, man.
So you said no surprise. Did you expect it based on the lack of stuff we've seen?
Not so much on the lack of stuff, because I actually was saying they've done a better job than, say, Avowed has. Avowed seriously has a lack of stuff like that,
substance.
That's actually the amount of data you would expect. But when it comes to how this is done and how the PR systems have done, I've been looking at it and going, okay, Stalker could be here or there. I think I was more of the opinion that they wouldn't, or that they wouldn't if they didn't have to. And they didn't state we did it to make space. They legitimately are doing it because of technical issues, needing polish, which I'm all for, man. We're now in this weird area where, not weird, but we're in an area where there's just no leeway given unless it's EDF. There's just no leeway given if your game has any issues up front. It's hard to climb out. What did it take No Man's Sky? 12 years? I don't know when No Man's Sky originally came out. Not 12 years, but it took it many years to even get to medium, I think, on Steam.
We have recent examples of games that, day one, had a lot of issues, like Last of Us, the PC remake.
Right, yeah.
And pretty quickly, they fixed most of them, but that's not what people remember. People still remember, the worst version as it came out.
The worst thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it is what it is. I mean, I'm glad that they delayed it. I think we could also see some of these others delay, especially when you look at Black Myth, when that releases versus Avowed, stuff like that. There's that crunch time right there, just where you start to look and you're like, holy crap, there's a lot right in this small section that looks pretty rough for.
I kind of had a question for you guys on this topic. Would you prefer that companies just didn't give a date? If they were simply like, listen, we'll give you a date when it's solid, if instead of giving a date back then, they came out now saying this is the date, so that they don't need to go back on their word, a few times. I just feel like there's a bit of the boy who cried wolf type of situation where we start to hear dates from teams several times and they go back on it. It kind of stops meaning anything. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, that or just give a time frame that is
time frame. Give me quarter,
a little
right?
ambiguous. So fall 2024 or winter 2025 or whatever it is. Something that gives you a bit of leeway to sort of run on, and then if you get a delay from that, okay, because you were already kind of ambiguous. But when you do set out that specific date, you do set a series of expectations there that are then not met when you delay, and that's going to be disappointing for a number of people who are expecting to.
And people were saying stakeholders
to be met,
saying that they need to give a date for stakeholders, but having to delay is also not good for stakeholders, right?
It's not good for
in terms of the
stakeholders, but
perception.
the majority of games that I'm tracking that got delayed don't have stakeholders.
Oh,
at all.
Yeah, that's true. They're just
Yeah.
independent.
I think stakeholders feel like a little bit of a leftover from the big man versus the small man. Let's complain about the big company. But when you look at least because I do track a lot more games than maybe a normal person does. But when I'm tracking games, I'm seeing way more delays because there's more of them than the big ones. I still see the big games get delayed, but or not announce their times and get moved and delayed. No, I don't. I mean, for some it could, but you're right. Investors also don't want to delay because that'll impact you. We also saw just recently Paradox 90% profit loss the moment they canceled the Sims, clone or whatever it's called. They got hit huge. So delays, cancellations, they all for sure hit. But I just wanted to add one thing. I agree with both of you. I just wanted to say my 2 cents. I do agree with both of you that a quarter would be much better. A la Kingdom Come 2, saying we're coming.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's what I was saying. Go ahead, Silver.
Just no, sorry, I lost my train of thought now.
Sorry.
No, that's my own fault.
Okay, so we were talking about investor. Well, you just interrupt me, and you can have an interruption right away if it pops up. But I do think that when you look at it, the investor thing, you look at small and big companies, you look at the time frames. I love the ideas of, hey man, let's throw this out here, quarter of fall, winter, spring, that kind of thing. I would be fine with, and they may have a date internally.
Remember now,
go for it.
Exactly.
I think the big incentive for developers for giving
dates,
like a specific date, is the pre-orders, the pre-order incentive, that it gives them something tangible to set up and say, oh, we'll be releasing here, now you can pre-order. Pre-orders are open.
That's true.
I was thinking along the lines of what you and we all said about the quarter, that would still work for pre-orders though. If you could fit it in, like you could say winter, even though it's
kind of,
December,
but I don't think it works
sales.
as well as having something set, like, and specifically, like August 17th, pre-order game out then.
How early are pre-orders for you, Silver? Do you usually see pre-orders? Because I don't track when pre-orders go live. Are they about a month to 2 months for pre-orders? Or are they more than 3 months?
A lot. I mean, a lot of them are a year out. Whenever they actually set,
I don't pre-order nothing. So
whenever they actually set the date for, that's when they open for pre-orders.
I can't imagine like pre-ordering 1 year in advance.
Pre-ordering anything 1 year. I don't know
either.
I don't even know if I'll be alive in 1 year. Like I'm not even. That's
only
not
exception
even
is
fatalistic.
possibly with some collector's editions. I will do it while they're still available.
But so when collector's editions are such a weird thing to me, because I've seen some that really look like they're worth it collector wise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And others really aren't.
And others are, they're not. And, we've talked about this as like, could you do a collector's edition that just said, screw the game completely and give me a bunch of cool stuff because I love this game? I'm actually for that. But what I don't like is when, you get the code in a piece of paper, like a fortune cookie, where you slide it open and you've got your code and you're just like, I don't know. Yeah, that is true. The pre-orders is a good idea. Fresler, $5 says, hey gang, shout out to the bald gang. Did you see the lack of stuff for FC25? Okay, let me try this again. Did you see the lack of stuff for FC25? That's the football championship, correct? That would be your guys' soccer game, I believe.
Yeah, that's FIFA with its rebranding.
Okay.
They call it that now?
And you said I might get
EAFC,
it because nothing else is better. Salute to the community. Okay, I got you. Took me a second.
But yeah.
I didn't. But did it review well? Did football championship?
I haven't seen any reviews. I mean, is it even out? It usually releases September, I think.
Does it?
FIFA. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know much about football.
I would imagine it's just that they've announced features and some features aren't included.
Ouch.
That's potentially what people are talking about then.
I mean, look at NCAA. 2.2 million people paid $100 to play that early, and it's missing entire modes. But because it's college football, which hasn't been represented for going on many years. I don't remember the years. Somebody told me the years in the chat. People pre-ordered and were playing that a full 3 day. You know, the typical 3 day play
right.
a certain amount early or whatever. Yeah, play early. Play early because the game is already done for everybody. You jackasses.
Yep. That's now a thing, right? That's just...
Yeah, it has been for a while now, sadly.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, the play early thing is... I always assume we're at the worst for how things are going to go. And rarely did I get a CD where they're like, if you buy it early, you get a bonus track. But now I feel like, or you get a bonus chapter if you buy a book. Occasionally I would see that where some particular versions of a novelist book would have the next chapter of their next in it or something like that. Right. But it was so rare. But with gaming, every time I put my foot down, I'm like, I'm not pre-ordering. They're like, no worries, but you can play early. And you're like, Jesus Christ. Because playing early is true FOMO, guys. Pre-order's one thing. Pre-order's one thing. Play early, man, that's some psychologist level bullshit sitting on a couch trying to figure out the exact way to grift somebody. That is...
It is full on.
You can get a head start
or like
3 days early. Yeah.
And but here's the worst part, Silver. They play to both sides. You can get a head start, or you can watch your friend get a head start, and you won't. It's both sides.
Exactly.
It's just, it sucks, man. And the game's done, right? The game's done. It's like, if it's done, it's done, and it should be done for everybody. I do understand why they want to do it. Money makes sense. It's a business, but that sucks balls, man. That's like,
it does.
Play early is just, it's crazy. And people want the games. For example, NCAA is a good game. You know, if it was a bad game, it'd be one thing where we could laugh about it, but it's like that game in particular, a lot of people love that game. So you're just like, oh man, you know.
I'm hoping they will find a better incentive system, even just skins and stuff, you know, I think is better because this actually sort of divides your
player base,
your player base a little bit, at least enthusiasm, right?
Let me explain one thing, Johnny, because remember when you first started, I would always tease you because sometimes I would explain something I thought was bad, and you'd be like, well, to play devil's advocate, I'd be like, Johnny, there's not always two sides. Let me explain one part where there might be two sides to this. I'll be Johnny. Just for a second.
The turns have tabled.
Yeah, they have tabled. You could also use the 3 days as a server test.
Yeah, I hear you. That does make sense.
It does make sense. And you doing software, I've worked software development deployment, and I can tell you
a beta, like Ubisoft.
Or you could call it a beta, the crew, where they tried to pretend that was a beta. Final numbers in there. But you know what I mean, Johnny? You could say, hey, we've got 2 million people playing NCAA instead of what is possibly going to be one of the better selling football games of all time. You could say, instead of getting all those guys, and we see their server issues, but here's the reverse ass end part of that. You're basically saying play early for money, which gets you in early, but also you have a higher chance of issues if we are using it for testing the servers.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Dude, we can't get out of it. Soulskeeper 23 super chat. What's up, Soulskeeper? Thanks for the super chat. It always helps the channel. Gents, it's with great sadness to announce the expired potato chips have been triumphant. Writing this from my toilet. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was this big discussion about a week and a half ago in our voice chat where we were talking about things that go bad or don't go bad. And one of the guys was eating chips, or was talking about his dad eating chips that he thought were fine, but the oil had spoiled. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It's got to sit for a long time. But the oil itself went rancid, and he was sick as a dog afterwards. So then we had him this guy pop into chat, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to try out these chips. They're expired. And people are like, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine. And then I brought up that in voice chat just last week, somebody was telling this disaster story. And apparently. But
that's got to be a long time. That's Fallout level.
I guess it depends if it's a natural chip and it doesn't have preservatives or as many preservatives. Maybe there's a higher chance of that going rancid.
The fancy ones.
Yeah. Too bad, man. Sorry to hear that. Writing this from your toilet. Hopefully you're sitting on it and not facing it, because if you're facing it, that's even worse. So at least you can sit and type us while we talk to you, man. I hope you end up coming out of this, you know, not losing like 15 pounds of weight. Witness 1000 says, NCAA is ass. The presentation is crap. Ultimate Team Mode is janky. TJ Watt is black in the game. EA didn't gaff. I don't know what EA gaff is or TJ Watt is. I mean, I know it's player.
F, I would assume.
Oh, give a fuck. It's funny that of all the other things, he decided to acronym that. But anyway,
right.
That's interesting because I haven't heard anybody else say that it's ass, but I have heard that people have stated that what do you call it? That it's missing some modes. So I'll have to check to see if it actually does. Brandon Martin says, I paid the early access for College Football 25. I already have 50 hours in the game. Yeah, I watched Jay Reaper play, and he was doing the, you know, the thing that you do when you have a certain trial period. Am I going to buy it? Am I not going to buy it? Am I going to buy it? Now, everybody in chat knew he was going to buy it, but he's like, I'm probably not going to buy it. We were like, oh, no, he is. Because he just kept returning to it. It's like, that's a foregone conclusion, man. Right. We're just waiting for you to admit to us you probably already bought it. But, yeah, so I don't know, man. When it looks at, or when you look at like all of these pre-orders and all this kind of stuff, I can see a couple reasons why companies do it. But overall, hate it. Hope it goes away. Never will. We've lost that battle, right? I think.
I mean, years ago.
yeah. I don't see them giving up ground on that. In fact,
I think the hope is that they find something that works better as an incentive. That
in some way returns more value with less negatives than early access.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see them giving up any of them.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, they're just gonna keep adding. You're gonna get just more stuff on top.
Yeah, you're gonna get more stuff.
You still get the 3 days. Yeah,
it sucks. Next up, let's talk a little bit about Fallout London. So, big mod. I don't even remember when Fallout 4 came out. It's been years.
It's been years, right, in the making?
Dude,
as
yeah,
well?
I probably didn't even have a beard when I first covered that game. I mean, it's been out forever. And so here's the thing with mods, man. First of all, congrats to the team for actually getting the goddamn thing out. Because, like, how many big mods, you know, announced big mods have we seen come and go in a year, let alone 2, let alone 3, let alone 4? So first thing I noticed, I finally decided, hey, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to watch a trailer for this mod because I really don't cover mods too much. I don't have the time to cover mods. And I'm not going to review a mod in the same way because that feels really weird. You know, what are you going to do? Say, not worth downloading, I guess. But I loved it, all voice acted. A couple of YouTubers I know got to voice act some of the characters in there. Really seems to hit the London vibe really well. And they're trying to work on some technical stuff that's popped up, which includes some crashes. They're trying to, you know, which they, of course, you know, any game is going to release with that. But what popped up to me is I saw people playing it. I saw some people having no issues, some people having issues. And I was like, man, feedback to a mod team or getting feedback as a mod team, it must be rough because imagine a mod team that can't even pay a company to QA it, you know? So all you've got is maybe fans to QA it and yourselves. And then you're rolling it out for a game that is notoriously buggy. I mean, right? I mean, I think when you look at the Fallout games,
an engine that certainly has issues.
Yeah, and so you release into that environment, and when I saw that they went live, I was like, okay, this will be interesting, you know, to see because I saw a lot of fanfare around it. A lot of people have been waiting for this mod for ages. I like what I've seen. I like that they appear to have nailed London. I didn't know if Johnny was going to try this because it would mean installing Fallout and having you need all the DLCs and stuff. I wasn't quite sure if you loved London that much. So I wanted to see, are you thinking of diving in, Johnny, or is Fallout not for you in the first place?
I need to see more about it.
Okay.
See more what's in it.
Yeah. But what I saw was like a lot of, it's interesting to me. A lot of times I'm so accustomed to mods that touch little things. And so seeing a full-fledged mod is sort of a big deal.
Yeah.
That was the cool thing, was seeing a mod voice acting. You know how it's always, you feel like there's one part of a mod that's missing? You're like, oh, the writing and this is awesome, but they used, you know, ChatGPT voice acting or something. Or, you know, or the graphics are, you know, rough. Or the models were made by people who don't have the time to, you know, really sit and look over something, really identify something. But what I saw there looked insanely good. Like, really, that's because I normally don't put mods on our thumbnail, but I was really impressed with what I saw, man. And there, you know, I was just sitting there going like, man, how do you feed back to the mods your problems when you know no one's being paid? Got to make sure that, you know, you don't crush them under all your shit, because it's a free thing. You know, it's just a free thing.
Yeah.
And my experience lately has been Starfield mods and reading the vile filth, the excrement, the absolute unadulterated lowest parts of humanity in the comment section. Yeah.
Right.
Mad that somebody didn't include a certain lace on something. And it's not anymore you made a mistake or could you. It's, I can't believe 40 hours of you making this thing that I'm playing and I love, and you didn't include this, and it's just vile. You need to do this. I can't believe you did this. This works great, but since you're missing the entitlement, the sheer entitlement for maybe it'll help that it's Fallout 4, right? That it's an older game. So go ahead.
I think also, man, they hit like almost a perfect moment, because we're still riding off the wave from the show.
From the show.
People are still talking about it and excited.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, the idea that after, I think we have someone in chat who was working on it, they were saying 5 years working on that, and you're able to come out with it in a moment like this where it is in the zeitgeist.
Perfect time.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, perfect time post them deciding they're going to friggin' patch it, you know, and cause you have to delay your mod for a while. But, you know, that kind of stuff happens. But yeah, they worked through it, and we got what appears to be a really good mod. Ton of stuff that I saw that looked just fascinating. We're going to have some people in our chat stream it today, I think, in voice chat, and I'm going to watch them sit back, because I'm a fan of 4, man. Despite 4's issues, I'm a fan. Me too. I'm a fan of 3.
The gameplay itself was ace, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it was a blast.
It had the jank, but it's it was good.
Course. Yeah, of course. But none of us did 76 very long, right?
I didn't do
not
it
very
all.
long.
Not at all. Not very long, and a little bit.
Yeah.
I think 4 is a good place to do your mod. It's even if you have issues. 3 and New Vegas were really, especially New Vegas when it was released, was like you were basically just, you know, it was a crapshoot on how this was going to work.
Yeah.
And so
it come together in like a year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, late access. Could we buy that? Could I buy late access? You can always technically buy it, but you probably always should. But yeah, man, it was awesome to see it. It looks like it's doing well. Anti-Sky, SEK 27. Johnny UWU Enjoyer. I don't know what that means.
Wait, it's like a cute anime face.
Is it something like weeb?
Yeah.
Then I'm not
so
gonna know.
the W is like the mouth, and the U's are the eyes. So it's like a cute anime face in text. Ooh.
Okay.
It makes more sense if you see like an anime, you know, drawn.
Hang on, right now I'm just trying to write all my mental hard drive to zero so I don't remember that. Just give me a second.
Yeah.
Okay, we're done. Moving on from there. Thank you very much, Anti-Sky, for the super chat.
Like, it is really cool to see this like community created content. Like we had a year ago for Thief, we had
the developer
the Black
mod,
Parade,
right? Mm-hmm.
which was an expansion campaign for Thief the Dark Project, which is now nearly 20 years old.
Yeah.
Well, it is actually over 20 years old. It's it's nearly 30 years old. Christ.
That's crazy.
But yeah, with a bunch of missions and like voice content for a new protagonist and stuff. That was also really, really cool. So to see this stuff like actually amount to something, because you always see the creative process as it's being made and as people are signing on and then going off, and these teams are sort of coalescing and then disbanding. So to see it finally amount to something is pretty great, and I think everyone involved in that project can be very proud of the fact that it's now there, that it's now created, it's now a thing.
Yeah, and I think that pride also goes towards the idea that it's not it's weird, man, because it's not just like a mod. Even and those guys were developers. It's like here's an engine that wasn't necessarily known to run the best. They had some big mods, and to continue doing the mod, continue to have people together as a community, because we know this. We've talked about it because of our, the length of time we've been doing Discord and doing whatever we've been doing in the Discord, the chat with the people in there. The idea that they've kept a community together that's actually interested in it for that long and able to work on it for that long is like, and that's insane.
And managed to organize the teams and keep the teams engaged. I mean, just look at what happened with Reg's project, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? I would say 99% of the time.
Time is something that it's very, very easy to take for granted. But it's a killer, like for projects like this. It really is.
Yeah, and we see it all the time in Kickstarter where people are even paying for it, like, more actively, and projects don't come to fruition, right? They don't.
Yeah, because people, like, life happens. People will get pulled away to something else, or they'll move, or whatever will happens, and then all of a sudden it sort of disbands into nothing.
Yeah. It's especially with time. You just have life, pregnancies,
yes, exactly.
Adoptions, families, deaths. So yeah, the idea that somebody's able to
emergencies,
do that,
disasters maybe, or whatever.
Yeah.
Accidents,
well, we had
whatever.
COVID. I forgot. Luckily with remote working, you might have, but they might have somebody in their family, and it pulls that aside. And I'm sure that what they need to do is film themselves a nice, good documentary as quick as possible. Called The Making of Fallout London. I saw one of them was on BBC, I think, talking about it, I think when the mod came out, and there were a couple of other things. Maybe they've got one and I just haven't seen it, but yeah, those kind of things are awesome. But yeah, congratulations to those. Christopher Jets are $10. I saw something from WCCF Tech that was mentioning that Dragon Age and Vampire Bloodlines 2 are both skipping Gamescom. Is this concerning? I look forward to both games. So I can say,
I don't think so.
I would say no on Dragon Age. It's not concerning. Vampire Bloodlines 2, it could be no on both, meaning they're just trying to get their work and they don't.
I'm already concerned about Bloodlines 2, irrespective of its absence.
That's exactly where I was going. It's like I'm not quite sure how much more concerned I can be about it before I try to hug it from remotely. Like Bloodlines has gone through, and by the way, I played Dead Island 2, which went through its own development hell. Switch developers turned out to be a very enjoyable game, a phenomenally fun game. So it can happen, but Bloodlines 2, even the stuff I've seen that they seem to officially be moving forward with, I'm like, ooh, I don't know what exactly that is, or what, why is it even got the name? There's some thought process there. I think with Dragon Age, it makes sense because they're probably just trying to get towards release, man. You just, like, it costs a lot of money. It costs, hundreds of thousands of dollars, ship everybody there, make a demo, lock the demo off, make sure you can only play some stuff. You got to hire a PR company to do all of the things. So I would say for one of them, I'm not concerned at all. And for the other one, it doesn't do anything but just sort of wrap up more concern for Vampire Bloodlines.
Remembered, actually, you mentioned, speaking of Vampire and mods, somebody's remaking Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, which was an old...
The D&D one, where you had the Game Master mode? Okay.
Yeah, they're remaking it in first person. As a like total conversion mod. I forget which game.
Oh, really?
It is.
I think that would work for that one. I wonder if they're doing the D&D mod too. Are they doing the Game Master mode as well? Because that mode was ahead of its time.
No, I don't believe so. It was, the storyteller aspect of that. I think it might actually be a mod for Bloodlines. A total conversion mod for Bloodlines, yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Well, hey, I'd play that. I mean, there's more than enough mods for Bloodlines have improved it than the original game ever had on its own. I mean, the game was rough. I played it when it first came out. It was rough. People play it now and they're like, "Oh, this is a great game." It's like, yeah, it is now. It is now. But
yeah, I mean, it's even still somewhat rough now.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Except for the dancing animations, still the funniest dancing animations I've seen.
That should tell you something about how it was at release.
At release, yeah, that was a rough one, definitely. Yeah, so there's other big mods coming out for Fallout. There's other big mods coming out for Witcher. Witcher, finally, they released their mod tools. But the other question that does come up is, like, what do you guys expect? For me, I don't expect much from a mod, meaning I know that it's done because of a fan wanting to do it. And there's unless they have a patron, which is fine, but unless they have a patron or something, there's no real financial gain for it. And like Johnny said, financial gain doesn't mean much when we see Kickstarter after Kickstarter after Kickstarter after Kickstarter fail. By the way, there's a board game company that just now sold their failed Kickstarters to another board game company to fulfill their old orders, and they're almost a decade old now. Like the failed, yeah, it's ridiculous. But from a mod, I don't know I don't really have any expectations for mods, because people have asked me, what do you expect from it? I'm like, I expect it to not break my original game. That's
start that as the basic baseline.
That's a basic baseline, right?
Yes,
yeah, don't break my game.
Yeah,
don't break my basic game.
Don't corrupt my saves.
Don't corrupt my saves. Other than that, the best thing I could tell any mod maker, because I adore all you guys. You guys have made Starfield. I enjoyed Starfield day one for what it was. It had its issues, but what I was going to say was I've seen people make some really enjoyable mods for Starfield. Really enjoyable. Enjoyable enough that, like if they did have a little buy me a coffee digital link, I would be like, hey, you know what? Yeah. This took you some time. I have no issue with that. I'm a firm believer in, here's $3, here's $5. I believe that stuff is like what makes a mod maker. And I've had it myself. Wake up a little dreary. You've had it, Johnny. You wake up to do a stream and you're just a little bit low energy that day, and somebody says thank you with $1, and you're like, yeah, I appreciate it. It's like
that made a difference.
Putting their money where their mouth is, kind of thing. But yeah, don't break my game.
Yeah, don't break my game.
That's about it.
Also, for mods that are kind of really big like this one, I expected not to. Well, I guess that falls under break the game, not like changing the way the game. How to say? Like change basic systems in the game or something.
Unless it's a basic change
break.
Unless that's the mod.
Unless it's intended. Yeah, unless it's part of the mod. But I have seen it a few times, not this one, but other mods that are really big. Mm-hmm. They do like certain things really well, but then they also have horrible side effects where some stuff stops working, That would be the only thing I would say. But yeah, man, I actually like what they've done with Starfield, where they have the market, don't they? Where like people can earn money,
and then they have that paid for mods thing, which I don't track, other than I know that people aren't necessarily in love with that for sure, especially because Bethesda charges a lot for theirs. But they also have
confused. I thought the market was community made stuff. Is it?
Yeah, so the market
Bethesda?
Can be community made. It can be,
okay,
but it's also Bethesda. Yeah.
They got their own, official ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Bethesda, the charge that you see from Bethesda for some stuff, you're like, I don't understand this amount. I don't understand this charging versus some
I did see some comparisons, actually, now that you mention it.
Hey, man, they brought us horse armor. They ushered us in to where we are now. But what I was going to say, the only other thing for any mod makers out there is just embrace FileNexus. They're the best place to go. You can get your mods. There's other places. I shouldn't say the best, because that might bring some. There are other places to go, but it's the biggest currently. And they're using Good Old Games for theirs, Fallout London, because it's so big. The mod is so big. So there were some discussions I remember seeing about the size, which makes total sense. They're very good. Mod.io, I believe is Mod.io is the other one. But just make sure if you want as many eyes on, upload it to as many places as.
Well, I really blame, rather than the horse armor, The Sims.
Oh,
the shitty expansion packs
or whatever
that Max has started doing the first Sims that were basically just here's a new tuxedo and whatever it is, like flimsy sort of stuff packs that basically added like very extra novelty stuff, I guess, to the game for like on discs as sort of expansion packs, but we're really, really light on the content.
The Frizzler, $5 super chat on something random. You were right about Time Bandits, the new one. It sucks. They should have left the old classic alone. Yeah, it was sort of weird to see a new Time Bandits. Just got to throw it out there, but it's one of those things. Remakes of movies, remakes of games sometimes don't make sense. That one in particular did not. Anything else about Fallout London other than people should go check it out, download it if you have Fallout 4. I believe you need all the DLC or the Game of the Year edition, I believe, but don't like 100% believe me on that. Go check their website. But yeah, you should definitely check it out if you like the idea of running around a Fallout version of London. It's a good place to go. Yeah, very cool. Next up,
you know what? Just a quick big congrats to everybody who pulled that through, because it takes some fucking tenacity to 5 years.
Yeah,
doing anything really, but
congratulations.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, definitely. Next up, Total War Pharaoh free update. What? So, all up. I was confused by this. I'm assuming you don't just mean update, like they updated the game. Silver.
No,
you mean,
considerable additions of content.
What is it?
Well, it's a massive map expansion for one thing. Like we're now getting Mesopotamia and the Aegean, as in Greece. So and those come with additional factions as well. So we're getting Mykonos and Troy or Troya. Mm-hmm. And for Mesopotamia, we're getting Babylon and Assyria.
Damn.
And then they're expanding an entirely new dynasty system, revamping battle gameplay, campaign mechanics, pretty much total overhaul of the entire game. And not only is it free, but months ago they slashed the price of Pharaoh from $60 to $40.
Mm.
So you're getting all of that content not only free, but at a lower price than at release, which is fairly incredible, I think.
And the game
and it goes a long way toward a game that was not quite universally praised at release.
That's what I was going to ask.
It did have its fans. I thought it was okay, but certainly now it's a significant improvement to where I think it now stands probably as one of the best Total War games in the series.
Really?
That diplomacy options now are much more intricate and much more along the lines of something you see in Three Kingdoms, where there are now dynasties where your faction leader can die of old age, and then it passes down through the family, like in Crusader, similar to Crusader Kings. There are interpersonal relationships, all that stuff. It's just really, really cool.
That's awesome to see, man. That's cool, because that one, me, I'm not a huge fan of that timeline nor location, so I've just sort of been hands off on that one. Watching some of the reporting, I know when it first launched, it wasn't beloved, that there were some issues. Yeah. But how long's that been out now? A year?
Nearly. I think it released late last year. Yeah, I think around September.
Damn.
Last year.
Kig, $10 super chat. He is, let's see, playing through Tomb Raider Survivor Trilogy so far. That 1080 Ti has been able to handle any game I throw at it from last gen at 1440p 60 FPS. Leaving some more thanks here. Yeah, you're welcome, man. I noticed Kig was having an issue getting some games to run, and I had a 1080 sitting around, so I was like, just give me your address. I'll just send it to you.
That's great.
You've been a patron forever. Whatever. I'll just, it's like with Sleeve. When he was having issues, I was like, dude, it's sitting here. Merry Christmas, whatever. And it was funny, though, because the difference was astronomical. I don't remember what he was running, but it was like a rock and a string, because when he put it in and he started streaming the next day, I was like, oh my God, what I had been watching, and it was like stuttery and all this stuff. So it's crazy. Yeah. The 1080 Ti is probably one of my favorite cards of all time. That thing is a trooper.
Oh, so yeah. All of a sudden you can play without having to look down at your feet all the time.
Yeah, to get the FPS high where you look down. But yeah, so no worries, Kig. I'm glad it worked, man, and I appreciate it. And hopefully it continues to work for you for a long time. The 1080s, They remind me of the 8800, man.
That's a workhorse of a card, man. I had it for many years.
It's that's the thing, man. It's like there's certain CPUs that I still see people running. The i9 or the i7 920 was one that you could just overclock that thing to insane amounts, feed it a bunch of voltage, and it would just continue to play games many years after. The 8800K wasn't too bad, or 8700K. You get certain ones, and of course AMD's got a bunch now. I have an AMD now, and it's awesome whenever there's like something that just sits around and continues to work, and you don't really have to think about. I mean, setting something down to 1080 is not going to kill you anyway. 1080, resolution, 1440p, even better. So, and Rise of the Tomb Raider looked phenomenal day one. So like,
sure,
that game is gorge. So we were watching him streaming. I was like, damn, that thing just absolutely has lived forever. Flip Cup, do you have any 4090s laying around? You never ask, man. That's the thing. He didn't ask. That's the problem, buddy. You asked. So if I did have a 4090, sorry, it's not for you. I'll give it to somebody else. No, I don't have a 4090 sitting around. I'd use a 4090 to Bitcoin or something. No, I wouldn't. I don't know what I'd use another 4090 for. I'd probably sell it because they're probably still going for expensive.
What do you have in your main?
This is a 4090 in the main, and then a 3080 in the secondary, and then a 2080 or another 1080 in the tertiary.
Because you do testing in the different ones.
Yeah, and you can pretty much now test on a 4090, and I can show you the scale very easily. Go, if I'm getting this FPS, this will get this FPS, and this will get. You can almost perfect. So you could do that in general. But the big thing, man, is the friggin' RAM on those cards, the VRAM. If you get a small VRAM on a card that sounds fast, like its numbers indicate it's going to be, once you start hitting VRAM stutter, you're like, what's happening? It's the game's broken, or there's this. And that's one thing where, having 24 gigs, you do see.
Yeah, some of these bigger cards, it's just never a worry. You're never going to hit that.
Yeah, you're not going to be close to hitting that. Of course, somebody's going to prove me wrong in the next year, right? Some game's going to come out and hit 32 gigs or something. You'd be like, dude, what are you doing? But, yeah, it's just it's awesome. GTA 6, 4090s. Well, remember when GTA 5 came out? It did not run well on the PCs. I still remember that.
And it had a graphic to show you how much VRAM it was eating up. Yep. And you could change settings about like the density of people and stuff, and you could see it like go up.
This is what I always say, Johnny, too.
Wasn't GTA 5 okay, but GTA 4 was really terrible.
GTA 5 was pretty rough when it comes to full performance. It was pretty rough.
On PC, early was at least. Very rough.
I believe GTA 4 was also rough. I just, in all honesty,
very rough.
I just, in all honesty, think that the GTAs are doing enough stuff that it takes a while. Whatever they're hitting, it takes a while. But I think GTA 4 was worse. To me, but it's been so long, it's hard to remember.
I certainly remember the coverage of it being a lot more negative than I remember it ever being for GTA 5.
Do you know why that might have been, though? GTA 4 was great. It had its own thing. But GTA 5, with all the side stuff you can do, I think there's just a little bit more love for 5 when it comes to the open world thing.
There's also the movie editor and stuff in the PC version of 5.
Yeah, true. And some great machinima came out of the GTA editors. I mean, you don't even need an editor, as we saw with, Red versus Blue. Dude, remember when that was a thing? That was Johnny, you were probably still in fucking high school or middle school when, Red versus Blue first came out, right? Because that's been over a decade.
Yeah, probably. I'm from 88, so...
Oh, okay, maybe not. No.
I'm older than I look.
Yeah. You are, man. You're ancient. I'm just joking. Wait, no. You're saying you were born in 88.
I was born in 88.
Dude, I can't be the only one who thought you were saying because I said graduated. I talked about high school. When you said you're from 88, I thought you meant class of 88. I was like, Johnny.
All right,
what the fuck? Johnny's got some Tom Cruise up in him, man.
Holy shit.
Checking his teeth to make sure he doesn't have the middle Tom Cruise
drinking
tooth.
Some babies or something.
Yeah, dude. I mean, maybe I was the only one, but I took that completely as your graduation year, and I'm all, That's incredible because that's actually prior to me graduating. I was like, Johnny looking
I'm
good.
secretly like fucking Aragorn.
Nosferatu.
And about 10 years prior to me,
Yeah, it would have been, yeah. But yeah, with the GTAs and that kind of stuff, I mean, I think the new one will probably push the cards pretty rough. Yeah, it'll probably, it'll be a year or two out from the console versions, but I just have a feeling there'll be, so much stuff going on. People are going to want to slide those sliders. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Johnny was talking about the little bar graph,
yeah,
where it tells you about VRAM and shit. I don't know about you guys. This happens with Ubisoft in particular. They'll have a benchmark, and I will run that benchmark, and it is never, ever representative of what I get in the game, ever. And I will try to recreate the benchmark even and be like, I don't know what goes on in those benchmarks,
go to the exact location.
Dude, yeah, or show 10 times as much stuff and the benchmarks get in 15 frames per second. You're like, uh-oh, this is going to be a rough game. I think Mirage was the last one where I ran a benchmark and was like, oh no, this is going to be troublesome. And then played the game and recorded it all with frame graphs and was like, well, that was weird. I don't know, which is nice. Right. You want the benchmark to hammer your system and be like, this is the worst case scenario. But that was the worster case. Like it was ridiculous.
That's something I wonder when you see all the reviews for PC parts and they show their benchmarks for different games. I'm assuming they're not just using the benchmark thing. I'm assuming they
correct.
They have some way to recreate.
Yeah, they'll do their own benchmark. They'll use tools to make their own cuts.
It also varies from other because some are a little shady with how they're implementing it.
Yeah, I know Gamers Nexus. They're very anal about their procedures. So
the only difference I can point out that I have noticed is that I have a hard drive that is an OS that's clean. And if you run a clean OS with just your update for your driver and you run the game, inevitably you will get better FPS than if you have anything else going. Discords, even just shit that's not running, but it's got a service running. That's the one problem I've had a couple times where I see some people benchmarking on a clean machine. And of course, it's supposed to be the best case. But best case doesn't equal very many normal people's cases.
Mm-hmm. Replicable
it is definitely at times where I'll be like, okay, guys, I get it. Everything's clean and everything, which is definitely, and I'm talking a lot of times about game reporting, not card. Card is one thing. You're trying to show the maximum throughput of the card, minimum, that kind of stuff. But a lot of times when you see a game, you'd be like, well, do you have, you got Adobe on there? You got a couple different things running in the background. You got an Opera open. You got Chrome open because Chrome alone, well, it used to be bad. Chrome's not as bad as it was.
Yeah.
But, moving on from there, we have a bunch of questions on Twitter, and then we'll get back to the topics. But I was surprised how many we got, so I want to read some of these. Let's see. Lands by Tossin says, I can't remember if the Helldivers update was announced this or last week, but it looks pretty cool. I wonder if we're
this week, I think.
Okay. I wonder if we're seeing more people jump back in. Would any of you guys jump in? And I know, KARAK, you're done. Just remember to wipe. I am done. Yeah, I'm not returning to that. Helldivers for either one of you guys?
Yeah, I mean, not so much jump back in, as in I've been playing intermittently still.
And been
jumping in
generally happy?
Yeah. I mean, it still provides a fix for what it does. It's still fun to just jump in, do a hell dive, couple of missions, contribute to the war effort, and then hop back out.
I think also with Helldivers, other than the nations thing, the sign-in thing, and there were, there's been some issues with server performance when it first started. I think overall, it's been, status quo, nerfs, buffs kind of thing. But I don't remember, at least I haven't heard anybody in our Discord or seen anything pop up on my feeds that says, oh my God, this update borked everything, which we do have with other games. So it's been generally playable since a couple days after launch, right?
And I mean, there's been some pretty fun story beats with conquering planets and defending planets and whatnot that they've set up. And it's going to be interesting for what's coming in the future, particularly with potentially the third faction, the Illuminate, whenever they get added to the game. Whether they're going to be part of this update. They mentioned in the announcement video for the update that they're including new game modes, whatever that means. Whether that means mission types that you'll be doing, or like specific game modes that you can select. I'm very intrigued to see what that actually means, because that wasn't clear from the video at all. But hopefully that'll clear up as we get closer to August 6th, which was, I think, the date they announced for the update.
Is there any mode that like pops into your head you'd like to see?
I think a horde mode could be really cool with Helldivers.
Isn't it always horde mode, though? Sort of? Well, I guess not, because you're going to do things.
Because you're going in and you're doing specific objectives, and then you're pulling out. So basically, just like a last stand, where how many waves can you survive, or whatever. That could be pretty fun.
Steven,
I mean, it kind of is there as one of the defense missions do have something along those lines, but but just where you tie more into it with like fortifications and stuff, that could be a lot of fun.
Oh, tower defense.
Yeah,
I feel like sky's the limit for them once they got all their other issues. Like, I feel like that's got a good base. I don't see that game going anywhere. I'm sure people are like, of course it's not. Yes, exactly. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that game has got a solid base and is doing well.
Definitely, given the sheer scale of its success, I think they have a decent sort of buffer of funds to develop from.
Yeah. Stephen East says, a live service model, what can they do to make it work? For me, it seems make sure the content is there at launch, as many seem to be lacking, and they end up chasing their tail. Even Helldivers 2, though its drop-off was a lot better or later than most. We are going to talk about this with Concord, so I'm going to hold this question. Let's answer that when we get to Concord. Coco says, I wonder why Ubisoft spoiled so much about Outlaws to where the game seems much smaller than initially thought.
Because that's what they do about pretty much every one of their games.
Yeah, I can't really talk about that one right now. I think with Ubisoft, and in particular Star Wars Outlaws, I don't know if spoiled is the thing. We talked about this last week. I firmly believe that the messaging is messed up, and it is confusing a lot of people. And we even saw this with the loading, not loading screens, where for whatever reason they made it such a big deal that that it's immersive and it's all this, and then you realize it's just clouds, and you're like, okay, it's not. You could have just said it's not a black screen. It's like we spent a lot of time in these interviews talking about this when there was probably better things to talk about than pointing out you don't have a load screen. And when you point out you don't have a load screen, what happens? You remove a star field from your discussion, but guess who you add in? No Man's Sky. And No Man's Sky, you can go anywhere. And in Outlaws, I think the biggest planet has 5. I can't remember. I think it's 5 places to land. It's not the same thing. So there's some mistakes in communication there. But as Silver and I have a general disagreement about this, I don't think it's been... Well, no, we don't. They always show too much. But my belief is that this one is by far the worst messaging, if that makes sense. So we agree that they show too much, but I think there's an added messed up messaging that's going on with Outlaws. Chris Betty says, sorry, might have covered this already, but thoughts on Star Wars Outlaws? In my honest opinion, it's looking a little rough with a launch date in 5 weeks. I think it's looking about where I would expect in 5 weeks, but I do understand why this post is here. And that's because they released a bunch of footage, and, they say it's a beta, right? And it is. They do have some stuff that they can do, but at the same time, you see those frame drops. You see the hair mess up. You see this, and you're like, "Ooh, is that going to be there in the final game?" So, I mean,
yeah, I saw some dude criticizing the explosions and saying it was a PS3 game. To which I could only think,
you always get
maybe
those.
He was too young to ever have played a PS3 game because
yes, that's ridiculous. I mean, you'll get some games where their explosions are just a major part of the game, so they look better. But when it comes to what's going on, alpha transparency and stuff, it's fine.
Yeah.
I actually think I know exactly what that person is talking about, whoever it was, because when you fire the grenades off, this is a video I saw.
It was the grenades, yeah.
Yeah, there's a leanness to the effect that is not what we expect, but is actually realistic to real grenades. So, by the way, I don't want it to be realistic. I'm just explaining that when you see a real grenade go off, it's not the movies.
You want the big boom?
Yeah, it's not the 10 pounds of gasoline
cloud
diesel cloud. Yeah. But it's Star Wars. They're trying to be cinematic. It needs to look better. I would agree with that. Let's see. Colin Hill says, pick your favorite genre and then figure out what game is the peak of that genre. Ooh. So favorite genre and favorite game of that genre?
Right.
Okay. Open world and RDR1. That's mine.
That's a good one. Damn.
So for you guys,
stealth.
Ooh, stealth. Yep, good one.
And that's a tough one. I might actually go Splinter Cell Blacklist.
Good choice.
Just because Blacklist had a lot of both modability and how you could like customize your difficulty, but also your playthrough. So it had a lot of space for like playing the way I like to play stealth games, which is Ghost, which is go through without like alerting anyone or knocking anyone out or killing anyone.
Yeah.
It also had single scenarios that you could play with other players cooperatively, which was a lot of fun to coordinate that, especially with stealth. It had a co-op campaign, full co-op campaign as well that you also could play cooperatively. It was quite buggy. It was probably the buggiest Splinter Cell game I've ever played. But like the actual stealth mechanics in it were solid enough that I played that game a bunch back in the day.
That's a fair one. What about you, Johnny?
It's very hard to pick just one, but I think it's Spider-Man, also like open world, I guess. The first Spider-Man.
First Spider-Man.
Because it was really just magical, right? When like, you know, you got to play that with the swinging. I grew up playing a bunch of those other Spider-Man games, like the multi-dimension one that I loved.
Shattered
you could have
Dimensions,
different suits.
right? Shattered. Yeah.
Yeah, and had great memories from that. So to see it, you know, implemented with this level, it was insane. All the suits, I really like the story in it. That's why I say 1 and not 2. I actually like the story in 1 a lot. It was, you know, nice, tight. I kind of
yeah, I would agree with
enjoyed
that. I think
it a bit more.
It was a great one. Screwball, $10 super chat. Helldivers should have checked all the boxes for me, but I lost interest very quickly, and I don't even know why. Somehow I felt boredom whenever I think of it.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, sometimes explaining why doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like the explosions thing. If somebody says the explosions look like a PS3, what part of it? You know, and sometimes you can't come up with a reason. I mean, sometimes you just look back at something and you're like, that should have worked for me, and it didn't. Death Stranding should have worked for me. I mean, I'm a huge walking sim fan. On paper, it's pretty close to my, you know, that, yeah, on paper it should have worked for me. So
had a good chance, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it, man.
But it does also. Oh, that game does also have like 20-minute cutscenes in between the walking sections.
Yeah, but I didn't even enjoy the walking sections. I don't know. But yeah, it's a good point. I get what you mean, and sometimes you don't need to think about it too much. I think we get too busy trying to analyze everything. And if you want to be a reviewer, you want to analyze videos, that's one thing. But I would say don't analyze it too much. I mean, there's a lot of movies I thought I was going to love. You go in, you know it's a solid movie, but you don't, you know, it's like one and done. You're just never going to watch it again, even though maybe it's your favorite actor or maybe it's your favorite comic book character. Def Ego says, is Battle Pass bad? I see a lot of people don't like it, but in my own honest opinion, for the usual $10, it not only gives you cosmetics, but most of the time it gives me a reason to keep playing and keep me coming back. Is that really a bad thing? No, not for you. I think Battle Passes are... Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like it's just implementation is the answer to everything, right? If the battle pass is implemented well,
yeah,
and you get an overabundance of return on your money, then I guess it's probably fine. I think the thing is everybody's worried everything is going to have all the problems, if that makes sense. People are worried that it's Battle Pass and early access and an alpha or whatever it may be, and microtransaction, and it's like they're waiting for that game to have every single bad thing you can possibly define. I'm trying to think if I played a game with a Battle Pass, like returned.
Borderlands 3 maybe.
Did Borderlands 3 have a Battle Pass?
Oh no, actually, no. Sorry, I'm confusing it with Season Pass. I bet.
Yeah,
Battle Pass,
well,
a different thing.
Yeah.
Diablo 4 maybe.
And that's the other thing, right, guys? Battle Pass, Season Pass, like Pass. They start to overlap, right? Demo versus early access versus beta access,
and all this vernacular, especially if you're an outsider coming into gaming, right?
Oh my God! Imagine if you get your first console today and somebody says, "Hey man, go get Game Pass," and you have so many tiers to get, and you're like, "Which one?"
Game Pass, Battle Pass, Season Pass. What the hell? This is Disney World. Yeah.
Yeah. Shoopy Pit says, "What new hardware are you all using?" I've been using a CRT monitor for PC gaming and Netflix, and a CRT TV for Wii. Those free Facebook Marketplace finds really help re-spark gaming passions. So is there a bit of new hardware that you guys have? Anybody in chat also, what's the newest piece of hardware you guys have? It doesn't have to be for gaming. Is there anything that's new that maybe, you have for whatever your hobby is? What's new that I have in my PC?
I got a really nice, audio interface / mixing table from Rode. It's the Rodecaster Pro 2, and it has 2 PC inputs as well. Well, now I'm doing single PC, but it's still nice because you can actually plug both of them and you have 2 devices. So you could use, maybe your music going through one and all your other stuff through another, and you have the faders. There's something that I love about having faders for different things, so I can control, the sound of my guitar, the game, the music.
Right.
I really
Make
like
it
being
just
able
right
to balance
for you.
it just right. Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, Johnny. There's something about an analog device.
Absolutely, man.
Knobs,
faders.
Yeah. There's a discreteness that is much better than a mouse on a circle trying to trying to get that just perfect. Whether it's probably placebo in some ways, but it works for me. Do you have anything, Silver, for yours? Like even like maybe you read normal books, right? You don't read Kindle or anything. You don't.
No, I don't.
You don't. Okay, so you don't have anything for that. Any other? Anything that you can? Think
I do have a Remarkable, but that I got that a while ago now.
How'd you like that? The Remarkable.
2 years ago. I like it fine, just for note taking. Particularly for games, I found it valuable, like Elden Ring or Dragon's Dogma 2. It was really useful.
Taking up notes, drawing a map.
Taking notes for that. Yeah.
We have a Remarkable as well. I think those kind of things are super helpful if you want something sort of separate from on the screen, depending on how many screens. I think we're all at least 2 screen. Are we all 2 screen here?
2 screen. No, I'm single screen.
You're single screen, so it makes even more sense for you, so that you don't have to alt tab and see some note or whatever. It's like, hey, I just want this separate.
Yeah.
And drawing the map, I don't care what anybody says, man. There's something. It's almost like when you read aloud, you memorize it a little bit better than if you read just in your head.
Yeah.
There's something about drawing a map yourself that your brain knows what you mean. If you draw like a valley, your brain, it doesn't matter what map is there, your brain knows what you were trying to do and can pick things out easier, when you draw it yourself. That's cool. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about the Remarkables, but we like ours as well.
I did actually, just real quick there. When I played Elden Ring for the first time, I put on my tablet the map from Elden Ring.
Yep.
And so I could draw on it, and I could zoom in and out and stuff. So I would draw stuff, and I would, for example, like here I found a bad guy that I couldn't kill. This is the path to go up the hill, like little arrows and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're great, man. They're like
that's pretty cool.
Huge boon, and you can even get a cheap tablet for even,
I would love to see that in a game too, the ability to,
Elden Ring
take it in.
kind of let you do that to an extent where you could set down markers and stuff.
Yeah.
That was actually really cool. But to see that expanded for particular open world games would be really, really nice.
And then Landon asks, what's one of the most frustrating or terrifying experiences you've had with hardware or software? I bought a used 3080 that was used for mining on the cheap. I was convinced that it had an issue with LOD loading and texture pop in and spent days troubleshooting and reading forums. That's frustrating.
Yeah.
I had a computer virus once, but I think that was maybe 20 years ago, 15 or so, where I couldn't really boot up the computer because it kept crashing.
Full-on virus
in the boot up screen. Yeah.
Did you have to
struggled a lot to resolve that?
Yeah, those always suck. It's so, I try to make sure I'm always running stuff, but it's like you never know these days. Sometimes they just, somebody will end up taking over a website and having bad ads pop up, and you'll get malware alerts and shit.
I also had a Russian hacker once hack my EA account. It was really funny because he actually put in his address into the personal information.
World's worst hacker, man.
When I recovered it, and changed the password and locked him out. So yeah.
I would say, as a part of this podcast with these guys, I've had every hardware issue you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Which is why we're called the Best Gaming Podcast, not because we are, but because it's just become a joke.
Desensitized to them.
Yeah, dude, I'm so desensitized to issues now. Especially because, you're using your PC for games, for entertainment, for what have you, and some damn YouTube thing is like pops up and or not YouTube, sorry, but Windows is like, do you want to update? And it's always on Fridays prior to the podcast. But I mean, yeah, I've had tons. There isn't one in particular that's worse or, I fried my 8800 with Ice Answer for GTA 4. And that really did fry it. Yeah, because I used the wrong driver. That was back when the driver was doing something. I think I was overclocking it, but I just was letting it run. And I thought I had the right driver, and somehow that driver, I guess when the pop-up says, you've updated, maybe it just said not installed, and I thought it said installed. I don't remember because it's been years, but that sucked because I was without a card. But
man.
And then I had a hard drive fail. That would probably be the worst. When we first started the podcast, I had all my ACG stuff on a hard drive and had to pay a clean room to get that stuff off of there because at the time I didn't have backups. Now I do. That is my.
Well, you know what? That's a good learning, though. That is a good learning.
It would have been better if it hadn't cost that much. But yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, the backups still have not cost across all the months equal to the clean room fix. By the way,
dude,
clean room fix was a chunk of my retirement when I started.
It's
YouTube
like some IVF level, like
yeah, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And then lastly, Massive Wagon says emulators or classic consoles. What do you guys like to stick with if you're going to play old games? That's a good question, man. And anybody in chat, do you do the old console connected to the TV, or do you guys do emulators? I do. Well, I do have a 360 and a PS3 hooked up. For older stuff, I guess it's emulators. What do you guys do if you play old games?
Both.
Both?
It depends. So, like, if I feel like playing, like, a Super Nintendo game, I'll play it on an emulator, generally. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll play it on the, like, Switch online, whatever. I forget what it's called, the online service there that allows you to play old SNES games. But generally, I'll use an emulator. Also old NES games as well, or like arcade games. So like those vintage games, I will play with an emulator. My Game Boy Advance, I will play physically when I'm out traveling sometimes. Those are the ones I tend to play physically. I don't really play PS1 or Xbox One games. If I do, I emulate it on the actual console through backwards compatibility on like the Xbox or whatever digitally. So that I think that's about it.
It's great having the ability to have an emulator if you don't have the console, but there is something to be said about having the old console boot up too. Sort of like
there is. It's just it's a lot of space. It's a lot of wires.
Yep. It's one more HDMI handshake that can go wrong, and boy, do they always go wrong. What about you, Johnny?
I mean, or it's the SCART for the old.
Yeah, that is true.
I don't do it, frankly. I used to play like some of those old like Pokemon games because I grew up with them, and those were in emulator. But yeah, I haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I don't either. Red Dead 1, I replayed a couple of those. If they, I used to play KOTOR a lot, but
how does that one hold up? Was it recent? Red Dead 1?
Red Dead 1 holds up pretty goddamn well because the lighting engine and what they were doing. I was shaking my head because I thought you were asking about KOTOR. KOTOR was holding up, and I was replaying it, and then one time I played it, and I was like, it just went away. It just went away. My desire to play went away while I was playing it. I was playing it, and I was loving it, and then all of a sudden I looked at it, and I was like, what? It's like being in a bad relationship, and you look over at the person, and you're like, I no longer love you.
No, we're done. We're done,
and I haven't turned it on since. So, Screwball, BGN10, Super Chat. Around 1997, I had a hard drive fail due to a ribbon cable in the drive itself that broke. Also completely lost a NAS a few years back.
Damn.
Yeah, I do online and physical backups always now. And hardware space is so cheap now that, and with compression algorithm, you can compress the hell out of your image and still get a bunch of data on there. And so, yeah, I have rolling backups. And I think that if you're a creator, you absolutely should. If you're not, you're quite literally just on a countdown until you will rue the day. I remember Reg was not doing backups. I told him about the drive dying for the ACG podcast, and he was like, oh, that sucks. And then like maybe less than a year later, he had something happen. And all of a sudden, I started hearing him talking about backups. I was like, yep, that's what happened.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that like you kind of have to go through?
You do a little bit. I was teasing you saying that like it was a good lesson to learn.
Yeah, it would be better if it was cheaper, but it wouldn't be as sticky.
Right.
Because now you're never gonna be caught without a backup. Like,
yeah, no, I will never. My wife's is backed up. Everything's backed up, multiple places. Yeah. You do.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah, I guess you're right. BT Maverick wants to know.
You also have the cloud now, at least.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, BT Maverick says, "Are you guys catching Deadpool and Wolverine?" I already saw it. Yesterday.
Oh, nice, man.
Yep.
Did you like it?
It was unbelievably good, especially for somebody who was not expecting it. And I'm not the biggest Wolverine fan.
Like about the character or the actor?
Oh, I love Hugh Jackman. I think he's one of the better casting that I didn't agree with or didn't see it at first, but it was
grew
some of the best fan service I've certainly since Iron Man 1. Certainly, I haven't felt that.
Good.
It was the first time in a long time I remember the audience continually going, "Are you kidding?" You'd hear somebody go like, "Are you kidding me?" Or, "Oh my God." There were just surprise after surprise after surprise.
I'm going to go watch it. I rarely go to the cinema these days, but I will for this one.
It was just, I remember we were walked out and we were sort of stupefied by it because we didn't even know where to start talking. And the best thing is it's heartfelt, which, I won't go into it any more than to say that you would assume it's got Deadpool.
It's got some heart.
Yeah, but you would assume as a Deadpool game it wouldn't, a Deadpool movie it wouldn't, because it's Deadpool and it would be hard to translate that, even though I believe Deadpool 1 did a very good job with that.
I was about to say.
I think 2 lost that,
movies
even though she died. Yeah, I think it didn't.
That's true.
But 3, it hit both of them hard. And there are things that happen in that where I'm like, I'll just say I expect it to not only blossom, I expect it to blossom into other things. I just don't see what I saw not turning into other things, with Marvel. It was mind-blowing, man. It was mind-blowing.
That's awesome, man.
Also,
I love to see those guys come together to do that.
Yeah, and you can tell.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about bad chemistry that sometimes works in movies or TV shows. Moonlighting is notorious for the last 3 decades as being one where the 2 leads didn't like each other and it worked quite well. as in they didn't like each other in real life and it worked quite well. But I can tell Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one that I can go, those people are genuinely enjoying themselves. And Deadpool, I think you need it for the comedy. And it's so funny.
There's something about those two guys. It just...
And I think Hugh Jackman said it best. He said when he saw Deadpool 1, he was like, oh no, I just announced my retirement. But it feels like this is the perfect guy who's more of a cynical bastard than I am. A counterpoint. And they nail all that. It was just, yeah. And next up, Steven says, what do you guys think about Bandwagon games? Seems like execs and management saying copy that game. But often they're soulless.
Yeah, I mean, that happens in chasing trends is a part of every single creative industry.
Not only
it's
that,
funny he said, sorry, continue. My bad.
Go for it. No, go ahead.
It's funny he said soulless because the first thing I thought is Souls. We get so many like Souls carbon copies.
Yep. And for no reason, Star Wars, I'm talking to you. I think that...
And I mean, back in our day, it was all Doom clones. They were called, every first-person shooter was called a Doom clone.
And remember when they, first person was sort of a thing, then it became a huge thing, then all of a sudden open world became a thing, and we were like, every game's got to be open world, and we're still sort of in that.
And like in early 2000s, every first-person shooter had to be World War II shooter or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's worse than anything, right? I was just going to say, I think that it may be unfair to say it's like we say they're copying, which is true, but they're also going on something that fans have indicated they like. And that, to me, is also not the same as copying. There's sort of specific, and you could believe the old story about like, these are the exact way a story's told, and this is how many plots can ever exist, and I can't remember the total number, but there's certain skeletons that definitely get copied. But I think most devs want something different. But I do also see copying. I'm not too worried about it because I see other game companies not copying. So to me, it's like when you get a good rapper, other people try to mimic it. You get a good hard rock band or death metal band, other people start copying it and start seeing what works. And by the way, sometimes those people who copy are fans. And there's a weird thing to say, you can't, like, oh, you love it so much, you want to be like them, and you're now introduced to whatever that thing is. Don't do that. That seems a little weird. Seems a little closed off to be like, oh, because I know a lot of people who are making, Doom, for instance. How many people who made Doom clones were fans of Doom, but wanted it in a different whatever, like Power Slave is one of my favorites. That's Egyptian. Is it a Doom clone? In some ways, yeah. But I'm really happy they made it. So I get the worry. We do definitely get some copies, though, that feel cashed in or maybe not enough uniqueness on their own. And then last up, we did get... go ahead. Go for it.
I think part of it is... I think it's a mix of factors. Part of it is copying what you see being successful, and part of it is also it just emerges as part of the zeitgeist of what is popular at the time. Like maybe it's a particular setting. Maybe the cyberpunk setting is particularly popular at that point in time, and so you start seeing a lot of cyberpunk games. Maybe it's the Western genre that has a resurgence of popularity, and so you start seeing a lot more Western games. And like that, I think that ebbs and flows constantly. And I think you see those trends sort of emerge as a result of that as well. And then there is just the popularity thing of trying to cash in on something's popularity, which you see in every single form of media, whether it's books or music or whatever.
Can I also point out the opposite of this a little bit? That when a company tries to pretend or tries to be as different as possible, that can also be a problem.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
You always have that. Yeah.
Yeah. You get that sort of back in the comic book days, anti-hero.
Trying to reinvent the wheel or
something?
Trying
to reinvent the wheel or trying to just be like, I don't know, where you get these, I can definitely pick it up sometimes where they're like, they'll even say it sometimes. They'll say something like, so maybe you compare them in a video and you might get a DM from a developer going, no, we're exactly the opposite of that. And you're like, that's sort of that's sort of the thing that happens with a lot of games is like, we want to be the opposite of. You'll see people say, we're an arena shooter. Well, we're the exact opposite of arena shooter. Well, what does that really mean? What does that really mean?
Yeah.
Like what, I mean, all things being equal, what does that mean? And is it new, or are you just using it to say, if you didn't like that arena shooter, you might like our shooter, which is just sort of weird in and of itself. Stephen Bolt says, am I the only one excited for Shadow of a Doubt? I check the site and PSN every day for a release. The updates coming out made me want this game, or made this my most anticipated game of the year, a proper detective immersive sim. Anyone else excited or heard about it? Yeah, speaking of Cyberpunk games, and I've played about 15 hours of this game. It's really raw. It's really raw. And Reg warned me, because Reg played it. And, when Reg says something's raw, I don't really know what that means, because Reg will turn on a game for 3 minutes and then say, but he was warning me about he went into more description, I'll just say that. And his description was pretty apt. And that's that game is the earliest of early accesses to me. It has a lot of issues. It's got a lot of things that don't make perfect sense. And I just think overall...
It's a year out. I haven't played it in a long time.
I played it last weekend for about 4 hours, and then the weekend prior for about maybe 8, because it wasn't super busy. I like the idea, Silver. I mean, I like the idea a lot, and there's some mods already that are pretty great for it, but it just has a lot of jankiness. I had some bugs, which I'm okay with because it's early access, but it just wasn't there. There's something about it that just wasn't there yet. It just hasn't come together yet, which is fine. It's early access. But I personally love the idea, and I'm going to keep track of it, because that kind of game is awesome to me. Dynamic cyberpunk storytelling, even though detective, it looks like detective. Everybody can be the bad guy, everybody can be the murderer. That kind of thing is great. What isn't great is Concord's release. So side saddling into Concord, there's a bunch of shit to break up. So we'll talk about concurrent player numbers in a moment. Concord also got mentioned in the copying other people discussion. I think Concord just doesn't have enough. It just doesn't offer anything that,
like, anything unique or different.
It's not only that I guess it just, the time I played with it, I was like, oh, it's competent. It's got a couple things, but you know how some games will have that juice, like Finals had Destruction? Destruction is not a small thing, because it can affect, the ability to traverse something, occlude your vision, all that movement.
The movement was compelling. It was not just the destruction. I think there was something about it that
absolutely
felt pretty good.
Yeah. And also a game that I saw a lot of people play for many hours without buying a single thing for money. Tons of hours. So there's something to be said if somebody's diving into this game for, let's say, 20 hours minimum, if not 40 or 60 for some of the people I know in Discord who were streaming it daily, and they were buying nothing. They were just having a good time. There's something about that. Concord, I haven't heard anybody say that. And that sucks. I don't know exactly why. And it seems to be, my opinion of it, I thought would be slightly different than other people's. What I mean by that is I thought I would have more to add to the discussion, but I don't. It's milquetoast in the way that spending money on it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because, yes, they give you everything, but that's almost like going to the world's worst buffet. If they... You know what I mean, though? If you go...
It is all you can eat, but...
It's all you can eat blah shit, and you're like, oh, well, go ahead.
It struggles a lot to throw off the just another hero shooter label, right?
Yeah, and speaking of the copy thing, I don't even know if I would say copy. I would say they could have copied stuff and made it more grabby. It's the fact that maybe they tried to do their own thing and there aren't that many gaps left. And so whatever they did try to do just is like, okay. And they don't really have a hook. There's no hook to that game for $40 in particular, or 40?
I mean, I think
40.
I think the cancellation of Hyenas in particular really sort of crystallized how narrow the gap has sort of become for that genre.
And the success that's available there, you mean?
Yeah.
That was Ubisoft? Hyenas?
No, that was Creative Assembly, Sega.
Creative Assembly. Okay. Oh, god damn, you're right. And didn't, am I wrong? I'm pretty sure Hyperscape was Ubisoft, right? I'm pretty sure there was a Hyperscape.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
It just, I don't know, man. It's just,
that rings a bell.
Didn't grab me.
Go
ahead, Johnny.
I was comparing it in my mind to Destiny 2.
Okay.
In the sense that a lot of people I've heard say they love the shooting. Destiny 2, they love the shooting. It's great. They don't like a lot else. At least,
fair.
Some people that I heard, like, they don't like the UI, they don't like the quests. The story is meh.
Mm-hmm.
But the shooting is great. So I was kind of thinking, can Concord get away with the same if the only thing they have is good, like, mechanics, Because the mechanics look fairly solid based on what I've seen. But maybe it's just not enough. It kind of like that's already been done, Like, you're not going to move the people who are playing Destiny 2 to play this or Overwatch, whatever
right?
comparison. Yeah.
So really good. You know how we know that? Because Overwatch 2 couldn't even move people from Overwatch.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
There's something to be said for that. Jay Reaper, $10 super chat says, Finals was the funnest FPS I've played in a long time. Yeah, you're not the only one who said that. I think that Finals just nailed the fun part. And I will say, I haven't heard... By the way, I'm just talking about the people I've talked to. I haven't gone out and asked people for this. But when I've talked to anybody who's played Concord, I haven't heard anybody say anything about... I've never heard the term fun once, which I think is interesting. Now that I think about it, it's never been brought up in the conversation. Characters have been brought up. Special abilities have been brought up. Level design has been brought up. But not fun. Not even the lack of fun. Maybe the milquetoast part, right? The blah. And that's a lot of money, man. $40 is not a small amount, especially when there's a bunch of free-to-play games that are fun. And yeah, like you guys said, man, pulling somebody to another title is rough. I mean, you gotta, dude, we can't even, I mean, look at, who's going to have the hardest time, guys? GTA 6. Trying to get people to go to GTA 6 online. That's going to be tough as shit, man. And that's GTA.
Yeah. Considering the amount of stuff people have invested in GTA Online,
right.
Their properties and everything.
And that's
everything they built up with their shark cards and whatnot.
That's tangible too, Silver. Like that's not even just the arbitrary, I'm enjoying myself in 5. That's the whole, cold hard cash of it all. Yeah, dude, it's tough, man.
You gotta go from my GTA 5 yacht to what in GTA 6. Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah. I think with Concord, what I would have liked to have seen is that to be free to play. And I think also if they were going to do the $40 again and do all this again, you really got to make it. First of all, the trailer was bad. Remember the trailer we saw, which turned out to not be really indicative of the game at all. I think it would have been better to just be like, here's why it's fun. Here's why it's fun. Show us the fun. Don't show us. We don't need to see a 3-minute CGI. Because that's not, you're selling us a shooter, and I know that there's story in it, but I'm saying nail the fun part, show people why they want to play it, not why they want to watch it. I can watch it for free. I can watch those cutscenes elsewhere. I can watch somebody stream it. I would like to see the reason why I look at a game and go, that looks fun. Case in point, I see like Squirrel with a gun. That game looks like trash, and it looks fun as hell.
It's like Goat Simulator, basically.
Like Goat Simulator. And I know that's a really weird comparison. It's just simply talking about when I see something going...
Yeah, start with the fun. Start
with the fun and then add your shine elsewhere. Or
there's
or let
no
people
hook
be surprised by
in there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like those songs that don't have a hook, that like they don't... Like there's nothing there that grabs you, know what I mean?
Yep.
You notice you're already in the chorus and there's nothing that you remember about the song.
Yeah, man, it's a weird one. I mean, Concord, you know, I don't wish any game to fail as long as it's got the chops to succeed. But that one, you know, we'll talk about this now. The concurrent player numbers are really bad, and concurrent player numbers I've always had an issue with, because we talked about this prior to the podcast. But it's like, depending on when you report them, what it could mean, like what does it mean? You know, how does that even really translate when you only get concurrent player numbers from some services? You don't even get them from all the services.
Right.
So you don't know, are people playing it over here because it's PlayStation or what have you? But yeah, it's really low, man. It's really low. Yeah. And it's like, when you just don't hear any fire about it, it's probably going to be a loss on their part. But I will tell you guys, I mean, you look at what Sony's doing and their service games and how they're doing everything. I don't believe Concord is the game that I had heard a rumor about, which was that it was going to be live service, and they tore everything out of it that was live service to make it look like a paid-for game. Maybe that was Concord, because I don't have that contact anymore. So I don't know if that's the game. It could be. I could reach out to him. But it definitely feels weird when you look at it. You're just like, this is an odd title. Because I would say if I look at that game, I see free-to-play with the typical, you know, battle passes, all that kind of stuff. And we don't see that. Instead, we see this game that's like just sort of meandering around, doesn't really do anything that's caught anybody's attention at all. And apparently had a free weekend or something and had lower concurrent player numbers than prior, or some weird, I saw a news report about that where it went against the grain and did worse. And I was like, you know.
Now, maybe a year from here, you look at it and they got, you know, a bunch of content, a bunch of new modes, or like all the cinematic stuff they're creating. And maybe that's more compelling, you know? Maybe they just need more time to flesh it out.
Do you give them... Gamers don't seem too open to giving a company, whether it be your older Gotham Knights, like, whether it be Suicide Squad. I know those are technically worse games, I think, than Concord as a whole, certainly from a, you know, delivery
I know what
standpoint.
You mean. Yeah.
But we don't seem to be like too open to giving those, and companies don't seem that open to it, because but I mean, you know, it's $40. Yeah. It's a paid for game. They said no microtransactions of any kind, so they're not making any money furthering, you know, moving forward. There's no money being made. So it's like, maybe they change the process too. Maybe they say it's free with 4 characters you get for free. You know, maybe they have to change the entire way they present it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's honestly a good thing that we don't give that much like good faith or like, you know,
it's not
leeway,
a fucking charity.
You know,
yeah.
If the game came out, you're charging $40 or 60, whatever it may be, and it's not a great game day one. Maybe it will be in a year. We'll talk again in a year, you know, but today it's not worth the money.
Yeah. And that's not on you to make sure that they make it a year.
Right.
You know, it's I think when you buy it, I don't know how Sony does returns anymore. I think that's the one complaint I would have, is that I would like the returns to be a little bit more. They used to be difficult again.
Yeah. So on Steam, at least you have that option, right?
Yeah, on Steam you do, but I believe Sony still is pretty ironclad on their returns, like a certain number. So we have people on our Discord who've run into that with just 2 games, you know. Yeah. So.
Really, 2 games and what?
Yeah, you know, it's like, I haven't gone through it myself, so I don't have to, you know, I don't want to speak for them, but there's been enough people, even on our podcast. I know Absy had run into a difficulty.
Yeah,
there
I've heard
returns.
A couple people talk about it.
$10 super chat. This is SBZ. Let's be honest, character design matters. Compare it with the first Descendants. Gameplay is great. Gameplay is great. Value. Warframe. Story is blah, but it managed to keep 100,000 concurrent players on Steam, and we know why. I don't know why. What do you mean? Are you saying those characters are blah? Because if you're trying to tell me the first Descendants characters aren't blah as shit, I don't know where we are in this discussion.
I agree that Warframe has good
terrible
like Warframe has good character designs.
Warframe is also many years after its first release. Warframe was a disaster when it first came out. So, well, maybe not a disaster. That might be a little shady.
It's also free.
Yeah, it's free.
But was it free day one? I thought Warframe paid. Well, there you go.
No, it always free to play.
Yeah. So I think technically, I see. So he might also be talking about, especially when you look at a hero-based shooter like that, you do want somebody to cling on to.
Yeah.
I've looked and I found one or two I did like the look of, but they also skew more towards the generic than I would like. There's nobody there that like really captured. But
I think
that's me. Somebody else may see it and love that.
Even Overwatch 2. You look at it and it's 2, right? Overwatch, the current one. Yeah. I'm not a player, but I played it one time or something. But even then, I saw some characters that I thought, you know what, that looks distinctive. And I like that design. I would play for that design. I just didn't happen to like the game, but the character designs overall, they had something going.
Yeah.
Yeah, the character designs were a huge part why I never got into Borderlands 3, because there were none of the characters in that game that really grabbed me the way they did it for like Borderlands 2, like with Maya and Zero and whatnot.
Roland. Well, they had a lot of...
Yeah, Lily in the first one, Brick, Roland, yeah.
It's interesting, Silver, that you bring that up, because I got a Art of the Borderlands book last week, because I've been collecting art books.
Right.
And I got to tell you, when I was looking at some of the art designs, I was like, ooh, these are not, like, this art book is not holding my attention. And most of the time, an art book, I got Cuphead's art book, and I was like, this held my attention, blah, blah, blah. But I looked at Borderlands, and I was like, Now, I've never been a huge fan of Borderlands as a whole, but I think by 3, it's definitely got more...
Yeah, diluted a little bit.
Or generic, yeah. And I noticed that in they had the thing where they draw the first concept, and then they keep adjusting, and they have that piece of paper that they've photoshopped into the book. And I remember watching the updates going, it didn't look like like there was almost no change. It was just sort of, a little green here, a little
just like
there.
ship it. It's
good. It just didn't really grab me. So so I can see that. And the thing is, I don't want to speak for everybody, because I do know a couple people who really like the designs of Borderlands. It just didn't speak to me. Sam Torres says, Silver, Johnny, and KARAK, happy to see you. Art books are pretty awesome. Yeah, I've enjoyed. I have the Making of Prey art book, or it might be Making of Prey. Something about Prey. I can't remember the exact title, but I've got that one. I've got Control, Cuphead, the Assassin's Creed Valhalla one, and a couple others. They're very fun to have.
I got a few Final Fantasy ones. I love seeing, like you said, from the
Genesis
original idea.
Yeah.
To like the 3D model in the game, like, wow.
That's awesome.
I have Cyberpunk, The Witcher, I think Pillars of Eternity.
Okay, I have Cyberpunk as well. That Cyberpunk's was good.
Yeah, I got that one too. That was prior to the game itself, right? I think, because I
got mine
at least
with
the one that I got.
Edition, so yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Because I have one called The World of Cyberpunk.
That's what I have.
Which is, and that was prior, and it got me all excited because it talked about the factions and the brands of things, and I thought, dude, I created a whole character based on those things. Like, I would be this kind of person, I would be into this and that. And none of that was translated into the game because none of those choices mattered.
Well, I have the guidebook that also has like 30 or 40 pages, if not more, that aren't even useful anymore because they've gutted the game and replaced all the skill set stuff. And I was looking through it a couple weeks ago going, right, this is not going to be...
Yeah, that's awkward.
It's funny you mention Art of Final Fantasy, because I definitely... Even though I'm not a fan of the Art of Final Fantasy, it's got a very particular look that I know people love. And so even if I look at that, I would have liked that one more than, the one I got for Borderlands, because I would have been able to look at it and go, I sort of get what they're going for and how they're doing it.
I have the one for 15, which you liked as well.
Yeah,
and
Boy Band.
They had some good designs in that.
Boy Band one was.
No, it's funny you say that. Final Fantasy has a distinctive look, because I would agree with you. These days it does, but it didn't used to. Like
you mean like in the Pixel days, like?
Well, kind of. I mean, we went from like Final Fantasy 7 to Final Fantasy 8 to Final Fantasy 9 to Final Fantasy 10.
And they were different.
All of those
very different.
were very, very different. In terms
but
of
there's some recognizable things, Silver, like
there's stuff to carry over and the chocobos and whatnot, and like the cacti and the mole men, the green mole men, who's I forget what they're called, something with a T, that also carry over, and the Marlboro plant, always there as well.
Fuck those guys.
Yeah, there are those, but like all of those were very distinct from each other in terms of their look, and even to an extent their feel, particularly 9, which was kind of like a storybook sort of aesthetic and feel to it. But like since really 12, I think that look has been really consistent, I think, for Final Fantasy.
Yeah, they've landed on something. I think also because the graphics have changed so much. You know, you were saying between 7 and 10.
Maybe it really originated with the movie.
Advent,
or like Spirits Within.
Spirits Within.
Yeah, that one wasn't even like based on anything, right?
That wasn't based on any particular game. No, that was just its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would actually agree with all that, because even though you're talking about those ones being different, I found them less approachable than I do the new ones. So whatever art style they've chosen for the new ones, I'm more in line with than the art style they chose for 8 and 9 in particular. I don't know why, but they actively pushed me away from them, if that makes sense. Almost like cell shading might push somebody away from a cell shaded game. But yeah, I would agree there. And there's certain, aesthetic that they've gone to, which is like the boy band look, regardless of it being the boy band game. There's a certain, even the protagonist
in 16
and 10 was really vibrant and colorful.
And 10 was really vibrant and colorful. Yeah. And guys, this is also copied another game. I mean, I was looking at Xenoblade Chronicles 3 a couple weeks ago, and going like, there's so many similar, there's certain look. And then I see Dragon Quest, which I don't think has the same look. And I find myself more attracted to Dragon Quest, kind of like, especially the 2 ago, I think, where I was like, I sort of like this look more than Final Fantasy. But I don't even know if there's a new Dragon Quest coming. Is there? I feel like Dragon Quest is like, it used to be a thing.
I think we had 2 and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam Torres, $5 super chat. First of all, thanks for the super chats. Absolutely helps the channel keep going. And again, soon we'll be moving all of the podcasts over to a new podcast channel just with the podcasts. Probably, I'm almost 100% sure deleting them from here and putting them over there over time. You'll be able to join us in there. He says, World of Cyberpunk 2077 was very interesting. So sad it's not a movie or more. Thanks. Yeah, dude, I feel like Cyberpunk, man, it'd be nice to have more Edge Runner stuff, Yeah,
absolutely.
Has there been any?
It's a great setting to do various stuff.
Yeah.
Spin-offs.
It's funny too, because when Silver was talking earlier, and he was like, if they're copying games, and he was talking about Cyberpunk, if there's not enough Cyberpunk games, there might be more. And I'm like, I feel like there's not enough, but I also do appreciate that there are more, because there have been more. There was the game that just released last week. That was the walking simulator detective game.
No one wants to die.
No one wants to die. Yeah.
Or what?
Like you said, it's also a good thing because it comes from an appetite, right? People want Cyberpunk. People want Souls. That's why there are so many. Yeah. We just have to be able to sift through to find the ones that are interesting.
That nice filter and siphon that can keep the bullshit here. Give us the clean stuff at the bottom. Maybe have a little less bullshit. Be nice if we had a little less shitty games. I was told that No One Wants to Die. Is that what it is? No One Wants to Die, right? Is that the new one?
I forget the exact title. I think it's something.
I saw a review that said No One Wants to Die is the boring parts of every other walking simulator put together to make a game. And I was like, yeah. I think, from the people I have talked to who played that, it feels like that one didn't hit, which is unfortunate because it definitely looked like it could. Observer hit middling. I liked it. And then there were also things I didn't like about it, but I definitely...
Laguna was a really, really solid cyberpunk detective game.
What was that one called?
Laguna.
Don't think I played that one. I'll have to look that up.
It's a indie 2D pixel detective investigation game.
All right, that's why
I was very big about it when it released. As one of my
KARAK looked at that and just bounced off.
This is going to sound weird, but it's the same thing with Shadow of a Doubt, Silver, is that the graphic delivery for Cyberpunk for me needs to be the high detail. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think I like Techno. What was the one that was the 2D by the big company, Wadjack Games? They did like Techno Babylon or something, I think is what it was called. There was a particular point and click.
Yeah.
That one I liked, and I was able to get through.
You also, you played, didn't you also like Dex?
Oh, I did like Dex. Yeah, I did. Yeah, there were some issues with it, but yeah, that is true. It is Techno Babylon. Okay, yeah. So Techno Babylon I liked. But I would say for the most part, I do like to see. JOAO Ho? Joe? Don't know how that's pronounced.
João. It basically means John. So you can say John.
All right, there you go. Ascent was a good Cyberpunk game. Yes, it was. Ascent was amazing.
The guys who made Lacuna actually released another game earlier this year. I think it was. Give me 2 minutes to look it up.
While he's doing that, if you guys get a chance, come on over, check out the Patreon. It absolutely helps the channel. I can tell you that we're not a bunch of influencers. We are just normal people here.
Are you
Between Horizons?
Oh, Between Horizons.
Which is a game about sort of managing a colony ship in crisis as it's going through space.
I hadn't heard of that one. What were you asking, Johnny?
I was gonna poke a little fun because a lot of people right now are moving from Patreon to Substack for some reason. I was just gonna poke fun and say if you're about to become a member of Substackistan.
Substack, does it have a chat too?
I believe it does. I think, yeah, and you can post videos and stuff, although it's mostly meant for written things.
That's what I was going to say. I know that a couple journalists that I know went to Substack, but
we have some people that do video mostly that are also moving there, so it's kind of becoming a bit more ubiquitous.
I think the big, huge issue that we have with whatever it may be is all you're doing is splitting your user base at some point.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree. And if you're happy with what you got,
I've had
probably
people
better off.
Well, the thing is, if you do something new, there's a chance somebody will join it because it's new, and you'll always get the knock-on effect, which is good. You see people who split their channel or make another YouTube, which is what we're going to do. You get new, but what really happens is if those both don't foster and flower dramatically, what you get is a death of one of them. It almost always happens, and I've seen it with so many people I've worked with, where we've been talking about, they're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to have a Twitter, I'm going to have a LinkedIn, I'm going to have an Instagram, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And inevitably, it's just too much. It's almost like when you dual stream on YouTube and Twitch. Got to make sure now we have the ability to get the chats all in one. But in the old days, man, you'd have to have two pages up. People be like, does he only read Twitch? Does he only read YouTube? You know, and then they get alerts on one, they get alerts on the other. Sometimes there's difficulties even understanding how do you interact with. Now, admittedly, with me, I do interact. I do know, not most, but a lot of YouTubers don't. They're not in their Discord like I am. You're a YouTuber, Twitch streamer, you're in. Most of the time, they're busy doing those things, and they're not in as much. So maybe they don't have those issues. But I mean, Substack will be one, and then that'll go away, and there'll be another one. You know, and they're all trying, you know. And then you have the inevitable thing where some business decision comes up. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the people I lost when patrons started charging the patrons instead of me for a day, all those people wouldn't have left. You know, it's like you sign up for a new program, it's great, but then you could turn around and that new program could do something political that people don't like. Suddenly, you now have built a support system for 9 people, which I have also seen, where these websites have popped up, somebody's built a support system for them, and then something bad happens, those people leave, you got 9 people who they've paid, so obviously they're deserving of whatever you've stated you were going to give them, and now you're stuck going, well, I got to tweet here, post here, copy it here, move it over here. Hell, I have that issue right now with Blue. What is it? Blue. What's the other
Blue Sky?
Twitter? Blue Sky. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have so many different places for you to go and talk about content. It's pretty ridiculous now. It's sort of what you really need is you know how we have Twitch and YouTube in one chat. You can get those now. What we really need is a chat interface, whether it be Discord, something that just grabs everything. And even Reddit is the other one. I have a Reddit, and a lot of people, because I don't push it very much, didn't even know I have a Reddit, and then they go to Reddit and start commenting. And then I've had people be like, "Oh, KARAK didn't respond right away, but I know he responds right away in Discord." I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, now you have to keep all of these.
Yeah, especially just if it's me. If I had other people, I would just have somebody else do that.
Get like a full PR person.
Yeah, we got more questions in here. Let me jump in and verify that we haven't answered these, and then we'll go on to the next topic. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, no, those are alerts for something else. All right. Now, let me try to bring this up because I wanted to ask you guys a question. Let me see if I can find it in the thing here. Oh, okay. Nope. That wasn't a question. Sorry, that was something else. I was like looking at it going, that doesn't seem like a question. That seems like a statement I wrote. Moving on from there, I did want to see, when it comes to what we're looking at for movies, you have Deadpool, you have stuff like that. Is there any, and I think maybe you guys already answered this earlier, is there any entertainment you'd like to see a movie made of here that's come out this last year? Has there been anything that you've seen that feels like there's a meta narrative that's sort of created where you'd like to see a movie? But I mean just maybe the last 2 years. Not like all time, because we could say KOTOR, but when you see something like Acolyte not really hit it off, you see some of these spaces where we get these shows, we see Fallout do well. Has there been anything that feels like it's got a rich narrative? Somebody's going to mention Elden Ring in chat, or one of you, and I want to say I just don't agree with Elden Ring because it would be the most boring TV show of all time.
There's a tree on fire.
Yeah. But if you want to say Elden Ring, it's fine. But is there anything you guys have seen lately that you've really liked, even if it was a Telltale style game? Because they do Expanse. Go ahead, Silver.
I mean, I mentioned the graphic novel Once Upon a Time in France here on the podcast previously, which is an incredible graphic novel. I think that could work really well as like an animated film as well. As an adaptation, that could work really well because there's a lot of suspense in it. Basically it's about a kind of shisty French or Romanian immigrant in France during World War II who has to do all sorts of backward stealing and stuff to try and both collaborate with the Nazis and also sort of help the French resistance and sort of navigate that space while he is actually Jewish himself and has to sort of try and survive and help his family survive as well. And sort of there's a constant sort of suspense to it. There's a constant intrigue of like both crime and espionage and all these things to come together in a really, really compelling narrative. Especially all the more so because it's also based on a true story. So that is, I think, a work that could work very well as an adaptation.
Like maybe a Netflix originals kind of thing, like 10 episodes of this, like a would it be a suspense thriller?
Possibly as like a series, but also I think just as a film, like gotcha. An animated film, like I Lost My Body or Summit of the Gods or something like. Like French animation has really been knocking it out of the park the last couple of years with feature films. Mars Express, I think, just hit Apple streaming for Apple TV, which is a film that I would encourage everyone to look up. Sadly, I haven't been able to watch it myself. It hasn't opened here yet, and I'm not signing up for Apple TV. It's just one more sort of streaming platform too many. Like Epic is one account too many for me,
right?
Or another account ecosystem too many. So yeah.
My example would be the other one you suggested I watch. It's the cartoon Scavengers something.
Right. Yeah, on Max.
Yeah, Scavengers Reign. Is that what it's called?
I think it might be. Yeah.
So, dude. So that to me feels like. And by the way, that's what drove this question because I'm almost all the way through it, and it's definitely got that grittier art style, the grittier, animated style to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that, see, I don't know the story well enough to know how you know, could you tell their story, or, you know, what exactly would you be able to do? But what I just thought it looked awesome. It feels like the story has a weird enough world. That world is so weird. The like biotech that they've got going is just really not been done since maybe Aeon Flux, or Aeon Flux, depending on where you are and how you pronounce it, from like Liquid Metal TV, like the old little mini shorts that made the movie. Charlize Theron did a movie of that. I think that would be awesome. I would definitely love to check that out. Do you have any, Johnny?
I really think that what they're sleeping on is a young Palpatine show.
Oh,
because,
dude,
well, not only did it, you know, we talked about,
was he ever young?
Not in the canon, but in the Darth Plagueis story, which is his master. So for people who don't know,
yeah, right,
Darth Plagueis was the master of Palpatine. He refers to him, you know, when he's telling Anakin, oh, this guy taught everything he knew to his apprentice, and the apprentice killed him, right? That's him telling the story of his master.
Right.
And it would be such a good tie-in to now be able to see that story, you know, that was referred to, that ties back to that. And it's also like a prequel to the prequels, right? Because so you really see like where it all began, because in some way the whole thing was Palpatine's big plan, the whole like Star Wars saga, in a way, if you want to look at it that way. So to see where it came from would be super good.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a lot of political, you know, stuff, but you could also show his training at different times, so you could still get your Jedi Sith fix in there if you wanted. I do think that they've made Palpatine such a multi-arc, multi-movie villain that, and his political machinations are so detailed and control across billions of people and all that stuff, that it would be interesting to see how they tried to explain how he got that good from what I've read of, you know, the different stories of him and the different extended canons and stuff, because you're like, this guy's, I mean, obviously he's a master Sith, but at the same time, I'm just like, dude,
he was smart.
The ability to control that, you know, and figure all that out, these weird things that, let's be honest, really was just George Lucas saying, let's just do a water planet. And okay, we'll figure out how to do this. Because sometimes you'll see that in a movie where they don't develop why the person is so whatever they are whenever they get there, you know, like so powerful. So that would be awesome, whether it be the constant stress. Maybe it was something that Plagueis did continually to him, you know, that made him always watch every single thing that was going on around him. I don't know. I agree. I would love to see. I love that character. I think Palpatine is incredible. Go ahead, Silver. What were you going to say?
I mean, I think he is incredible. I think he is one of the great sort of villains of cinema. Much like Vader.
Sure.
But I think it works better for me with the mystery.
I knew you were going to say that, and I sort of agree.
Yeah, it's fair. I would love to see it. I would love to see it, because when I listened to that audiobook, you know, it made so much sense. Like, oh, you know, the gifts that Darth Plagueis had and the gifts that Palpatine himself had as a smart person and stuff, and how he utilized what he learned from his master, like somehow really made sense in the way that I took it in. So I would love to see that done. But I agree with you guys. I guess it does break the mystery. It's like seeing The Thing in the movie, The Thing. You know, like...
Yeah, no, I mean, I see both sides. I would watch it, but at the same time, if it didn't deliver, then I would be like, fuck, that's canon now, and that's not near as good as... And let's be honest, our brains are fertile little idea generators. I'm saying even if they have... the ideas even we've created, which I'm sure are different if we all sat and talked just about Palpatine, or just about a villain in a movie. We would all have... And you got to pick one. You know, if you're making canon, you have to pick one, and that's really difficult, because then somebody who that wasn't their idea, because
everybody
of the mystery,
has their own projection,
and the
of
mystery
what it was,
the mystery of him is, I mean, it's not super mysterious. They have done a couple of the Legends book. They've covered different things. They've covered Plagueis.
The whole archetype is one of mystery with the cowl, whatever it called.
I would say the big place where the mysteries not necessarily have gone away, but a lot has been fleshed out is the comics for sure. Like, I'm sure there's a Reddit of this where somebody's taken every bit of factual data about, that's been dropped in every supposedly canon comic, every book, and done the thing where it's like, this is basically what we know of Palpatine, which would be a great research paper for somebody to do, and just be like, I'm going to try to take every bit and say sort of, here's the steps that he went through. Yeah. Palpatine's awesome.
I think one of the problems is also just that he's become iconic really to the point of Vader as well.
Absolutely.
Where he's so larger than life and driver of so many memes and whatnot, unlimited power and whatnot. That it seems like a really impossible task.
And can I point out that prior to the new 3 movies, Vader was the badass and the mysterious one, and Lucas neutered the shit out of that, showing him as a child. And the Clone Wars did a good job, by the way. Clone Wars did a better job than the movies did at fleshing out Vader. When I got to the end, I loved the ending of Revenge of the Sith. I loved him he's on fire and he's like, I hate you. He's not even trying to put the fire out. He's just, well, he couldn't. He's only got one arm. But you know what I mean? Like, he's not even patting himself out. He's just like, I fucking hate you. And I was like, dude, you just made an enemy for life. That guy's not going to help me pay rent next week. Like, that guy is mad. True. So, but the other two, I think, removed the mystery of Vader, too. And I do think that does hurt. I do think that's also why
I get it.
Palpatine raised up for me. Because I'm now thinking, when you guys talk about mystery, I realized the reason why now I think Palpatine's more interesting to me is because there is mystery. Where whatever they tried to do with those movies and the stuff that was said,
change how you view the character inevitably.
Yeah.
For sure.
Which is also why I wasn't interested in Obi-Wan at all, the TV show. I was like, that's
and also it didn't turn out to be very good.
I love him.
I like
as
Ewan
an
McGregor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same.
But, it's an interesting discussion. Especially, same thing goes for games, man. Sometimes this happened to me. I personally feel with Mass Effect, where sometimes I just want a big bad guy to be a big and bad guy. Right? I don't need you to explain every little thing about that. And the more we got into the Reapers, the more I was like, I'm slipping a little bit. Because do you know what I like? I like a ship that just shows up and says, fuck this particular planet. I don't need a discussion because they're probably not even, they probably don't even synthesize voice anymore. Like they're, and I get the idea of like, oh, they created this and they created that. But it's like after a while, I started to go, oh, these guys are just a big baddie that can be defeated in one of 3 ways that you do in D&D, which is either heavy firepower, heavy research, or a mixture of both, which is almost how every D&D game ends up culminating. Killing the big bad guy. That's almost always what happens. And it just sort of, the mystery was gone. Games have an interaction, which is, I think, why it works for me. Because even if that interaction, or even if the mystery was gone, I was still interacting. I was still not changing the world. You can't change much, but you know what I mean? You're the one making some choices on the way there. So you get to tell your own story. Where with a TV show, guys, think about it. One day in the future, man, if we're still all alive, there might be a time where you can just be like, I want Mass Effect to, I want to have a better ending for Mass Effect. I don't know, whatever. And it'll just be able to render that. It'll be like, I don't want the Star Child in my game. It'll just remove remove Star Child. It would be so amazing. Yeah, that would be awesome. I have this issue. This is Lombardo says, I have this issue when I watch a lot of shows. There's a mystery that is shown in the beginning. The more they reveal about the mystery, the less interested I get. Yeah, you guys know, dude, whenever they show the big climatic thing and then they're like, 10 years ago, I'm all, man, I know why they do it, but I actually like it when there's just an action scene at the starting because of something and then they move on. I'm not a big fan of, I know already where we're going to end up. Even if And a lot of times they'll try to fool you. It'll be like the good guy and the bad guy with their, lightsabers facing each other. It's like, I'll kill you. No, I'll kill you 10 years ago. And you're like, dude, come on. And then you get to that ending. They're like, okay, I fooled you. I'm not going to kill you. Or we're pretending to dislike each other so that the enemy dropped his guard. Now we're going to kill him together. And you're like, come on, man. All of this just
I agree. It's a bit cheap.
Just to sort of retcon it. Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm sort of digging the idea of the idea of well, I don't want to spoil. Yeah, see, there's some overlap with Plagueis and with Palpatine. I don't want to talk about, but because you got Acolyte, who's like, there's some stuff there. Did you guys see Acolyte?
No, I don't plan to either.
I've heard just horrible opinion over horrible opinion.
Yeah, it's a rough one. Like it's just one of those times where you sit back and you're like, damn, son. Like, where are we with these shows? Where are we? You get those shows that are great too. I'm not dissing on that. And you get Star Wars shows. The cartoons, the animated series have done a great job.
I started watching Ahsoka.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but I only watched the first episode, which I wasn't very keen on. And then I watched like the very beginning of the second episode, which basically undoes an event that happens at the end of the first episode and makes it completely meaningless, and also goes against some stuff in Star Wars generally, but that made me go, okay, I'm out. And I haven't really been back since.
Yeah, I found their shows to be pretty hit or miss, like the Star Wars ones. I've liked probably half of them, and then the other half have been pretty meh.
Ahsoka is held up, at least was when he was alive, by I actually think that Ray Stevenson's character was different enough, and he's got a presence. I need that presence sometimes, especially especially when we have a world with lightsabers and people hitting each other. When you get that big guy who is that big guy, and then he does stuff you're not expecting or acts a certain way, you're like, whoa, what? Like, instead of, we all see the small character like Yoda attacking at 6,000 miles an hour now, the fucking cheetah speed, or like an angry chipmunk. With him, it was more about huge power and like the amount of presence that was there. Sad loss, because I love that guy.
Yeah,
like,
he did amazing. To
Ahsoka,
be fair.
I think he held it for me, because I agree with you on that. Silver, I agree. Like there were things in that. I'm gonna be brutally honest, man. What's her name? The main actress in Ahsoka.
I'm not a huge fan.
Dawson, wasn't it?
Rosario Dawson. I have never been able to appreciate whatever other people appreciate with her. And I'll firmly say I'm in the wrong. Somebody knows something I don't know. But she's so wooden. And then the other person that's in there as well, who I normally like, I believe she was in the Cloverfield Lane movie. She was the female protagonist in Clover. I think she's the same lady. They're both so wooden that it's so hard to get into, and I'm sure some director tells them to be stoic. And when you say be stoic, man, I feel like a good director has to go, but what that means on camera is, or you have an amazing actor who understands what stoic is, and stoic does not always mean wooden. And
also the thing
Mary Elizabeth, thank you. Yeah, Mary Elizabeth.
Stoic is not that you don't have any emotions or feelings, is that you're resilient to them. So you're able to experience those highs and still have, emotions and everything, but you're not lost in emotion for 3 hours. No, you move on from it.
Well, it's not only that, but it's like, it doesn't always mean that you can't that you can't react to stuff. Yeah. It's just, it requires a director to say, you're on, how you guys have heard, if you're a theater actor, you have to be louder for the most part, because you have to project. There's different formats. With a TV show versus anime versus a movie, there's different ways. And sometimes you just get those people that it just doesn't translate very well. And that didn't for me. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
not against it. Also, I do want to discuss, at least for a second, the film or the Video Actors Guild. What is it? No, it's Voice Actors Guild, right? Or the Actors Guild as a whole. Motion capture performers. So they went on strike, or going on strike today, I guess. Is that right? Do I have that right? I think I have that right.
From 12:01 a.m.
From 12:01 a.m. And it appears to be almost entirely related to AI and voice and how that works. And it's been 2 years of them trying to work this out, I guess, from what I heard. 2 years, and they just haven't been able to work it out. Yeah, so that's going to be one of those things that we did hear originally that GTA 6 was going to be impacted, but what they stated, they announced that if you're already working for them, the company itself is one of the companies that they're striking, but that game they're not, because those people have already signed deals and stuff. It's something to that effect that they pass that on. I don't know about you guys. I don't feel like another 2 years is probably going to. I feel like we're at an impasse, man. It just. I mean, if it's not the thing is like voice acting and all that stuff, and you get like, look at Fallout London, ton of voice actors, right? Many YouTubers. I'm pretty sure a lot of them didn't sign anything because they're not getting paid, right? So it's a mod. It's that kind of stuff. You're going to see all these people that are wanting to jump into stuff and are okay with certain things, whether it be signing a certain contract that says, for this game, you can use my voice, but no other games, that kind of stuff. But then you have the guilds that are like, no, we're going to say no to all of this. You have the game companies, which there's tons of them, all wanting their own thing. I don't even understand, man. I mean, I do understand. I'm saying I don't even understand how they're going to come to an agreement, because the future is now. The future's probably a year ago when 11 Labs, who's one of the major ones who does voices, got so close. It's certainly, as Reg said last week or the week before, Reg was bringing up that certainly close enough that they can hit the side quest. You know, they can certainly hit a Dragon Ball game that doesn't have voice. You know, those kind of things. You know, you could do a short sentence, and most people aren't going to pick that up. But you guys saw that the guy who played Darth Vader, what's his name? James Earl Jones, right? James Earl Jones' family. And he signed a deal so that his voice can be used, but all proceeds go to his family. So he's already made, and that seems like it might be the, you know, like, I don't want you to sell your voice forever.
CNN.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I sort of love his stance of it is, you know, I'm just going to let her go. I don't think everybody wants to do that, and I think that they're right. You don't want to record some stuff and then have them use your voice in a salesmanship of Mountain Dew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or say something that you yourself, you know, may bring up as something, hey, I'm not going to say that. You know, let's say a developer goes to a website, they're able to buy voices like you can buy assets. Those assets can be used in games that are questionable or 18 plus, and maybe at the time, you know, if your voice is used. I mean, I could imagine some 18 plus games where we saw what happened with ChatGPT, where they took Scarlett Johansson's, supposedly didn't, but did, took her voice.
Yeah.
And it's in their device, you know, it's in their device, and you're like, whoa, they just stole my voice.
Sued them, right?
I believe so, suing them, yeah.
I mean, we saw what happened with John Fogerty when he lost the rights to the Creedence songs, and they were
in
used in commercials everywhere, like Fortunate Son selling cookies or whatever.
Right. So the problem is, man, everybody waited too long.
Which Fogerty did not appreciate.
Oh, I'm sure he didn't. Yeah. I mean, but they've waited. It's like everybody's waited too long until, and by the way, other nations, you know, and other game companies in other places, perhaps like China or something, they're not going to care about this. And so what you're going to have is competing developers making games that are outside the realm of everybody else, continually improving their AI voice, let's say, or something like that, and start delivering games that hit at a higher level than maybe they do right now, where we can look at them and go, they haven't hit this, you know, they're not, translation-wise, they're not good at this, they're not good at that. As translation gets better, suddenly you have these voices that sound good. You have people who are like myself. Somebody comes to me and says, hey, KARAK, we want to use your voice for this. And I'm like, I want to be able to play it before it's done. I'll sign a deal. And then that voice is theirs. I'm not the only one who might say yes to that. You know, like those things seem like they're all outside of anybody's control. You know, there's just so many game developers, so many easy ways to make a game. So I get where everybody's worried, man, because I wouldn't want my voice, you know, in a Coke commercial. I hate Coke.
In the next Chat GPT. Can you
dude,
imagine,
I would love that. I'd be like, sup, everybody, let's sit on down. Yeah, dude, I'd be fine with that. But I do get what you're saying. And certainly I would want them to ask me, you know, and pay me.
You wouldn't want to find out, like, just watching
right,
like Scarlett did. Yeah.
Dude, that would have been, I mean, I can only imagine what that, and I say
that
I
must
can
have
only
been
imagine.
Surreal, because she did the movie, obviously, where she was the voice.
It was her, right?
Her?
Yeah, the movie was her. That must have been so, dude, imagine that, man. Imagine you're like, wake up.
It's like, wait, it's happening? It's coming true?
And
like...
you hear, you know, and there's probably some changes to the voice slightly, but you hear what is, to you, your voice coming out of a machine that you just told them prior, no. You know, you're like, no, which means they reached out to you in the first, you know what I mean?
They knew it sounded like her. It's just that, like, it wasn't Kenny when I heard it, because I like that movie very much. So I definitely straight away thought, whoa, did they get the rights for this?
Yeah. The Deagle says, ACG, those AI game reviews you used to do were hilarious. Yeah, those were awesome. AI is too good. That sucks, man. AI is too good to do the reviews now, man.
Too competent.
I should have jumped on that early, but it would have, at minimum, it would have probably got even more subscribers, and then they would have been like, well, this is a normal review. I don't want that. I want to be told Spider-Man doesn't kill people, and then show them, you know, basically breaking their backs. Let's see. Stealing your likeness is such a weird thing, but it is happening. Yeah. Indio says, I've seen a real shift in the perspective of developers using AI voice. I still heavily criticize it, but when I do, I get a lot of public pushback with a lot of the same rhetoric trying to counter. Yeah, I would say that's the other thing I've noticed, is that as we get accustomed to, you know, the mystery we were talking about with Palpatine or whatever, when the mystery goes away and people become accustomed to it, it creeps up, right? And it's starting to creep up. We're starting to notice that more and more. And you know, we got companies who I'm sure are using AI for something. You know, there was the rumor, I say rumor because I haven't read fully into the news article, but there was a story that somebody who supposedly worked at Activision, I believe was backed up and vetted, states that they already made one skin that was AI. Now, that's another thing. I don't know about you guys. The art thing. What people are saying is they're scraped with art to train them, right? And then that art was stolen from a conglomerate of, like, let's say 2 million artists, merged together, and then somebody created a skin using AI that was trained on all that for a gun. And I'm like, it seems impossible to police, because it's just like the shit's just out there. It's
out.
It's I mean, YouTube, people take my videos and copy and paste and put them in places to create goofy stuff, or they do reactions to them. And if it's on a different platform, sometimes, you know, you can't take that down, and it's like, oh shit, what do you do?
You can run a diffusion model on your GPU at home. You know, like, this stuff is just out there.
Chris is saying, as a digital artist, I think AI art might be good for concept art or reference. Yeah, that's what that's what I believe too. And that's what Johnny said about music, is that it's good for idea generation. You know,
put something on the page, you know, metaphorically, like we were saying. I think it's very valuable. Accelerate idea generation, super good.
Because also, at what point, Johnny, do we say, I can't make a diet plan with ChatGPT because this might have taken 100 million diet plans from the internet, and it might be somebody else's idea? And you're like, all right, what do we do? And by the way, that's being purposely obtuse. But what I'm saying, that the discussion's going to get there if it's not already there. Maybe it's already past that point. But you see what I'm saying? The same thing has happened with writers. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I think Sarah Silverman, if I'm right, was one of the ones who sued ChatGPT as well, because she felt that her comedy routine had been some comedy routine.
I remember, I think, reading that there was a lawsuit, but I don't remember the details.
And Sarah Silverman's not funny, nor is ChatGPT. So it checks out. Checks out. No, I'm just joking. That does suck, though, man. We need, yes, as Lombardo says, there needs to be regulations. There should have been regulations years and years and years and years and years ago.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, that like the legislation is so behind what's actually happening in society.
Yeah.
It's just years behind, right?
Yeah.
And it makes sense because it's hard to make legislation for a reason, and it just doesn't catch up.
Yeah, it's well past it. It's well past it. Like it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Hopefully they get something that they can all agree on too, because obviously I don't want games to be, I mean, you know, industry sort of in a weird bubble itself.
Yeah.
You guys saw Humble Games, they laid off all their people too. Not Humble Bundle,
I
but
did
the
not see.
Humble Games, the development part, laid off all their developers, a bunch of their staff. They said they were restructuring, but I'm pretty sure
that's always the parlance, right?
Well, it's always the parlance, but I guess you can restructure at zero, but it seemed like it was everybody.
Yeah, it is.
We're restructuring into a non-existing.
Yeah, it was weird to see it. It sucked, man, because, and then of course the first thing I saw, guys, was people were confusing it with Humble Bundle, and then I saw somebody say, yeah, it sucks they got laid off, but you know, their games haven't been great in the Humble Bundle lately, and I'm like, tone deaf. We couldn't be more tone deaf right now. It's like you can talk about them completely separately. You know, even if you don't like a product, it sucks somebody gets laid off, but it is part of life. It is part of business. But yeah, it's definitely it's a weird situation. Blue Sunrise says, I mean, there's a reason why all AI art looks super derivative. Boy, does it not, man. Especially the stuff I can get out of chat. GPT does not look derivative. Though, admittedly, if you go to ArtStation for the last 10 years, you see a bunch of derivative art because they were all told to copy World of Warcraft. So, I guess, in the end, all art is in some way derivative. Lombardo says, I mean, at the same time, by the time the regulations are made, reparations could be demanded. This could incentivize AI devs to not train their AI with other people's work. Yeah, I think we're past that. The big worry I have is people don't realize the only laws that are going to pass are maybe where you guys live and where I live, but other countries that don't have the same setups, same governments, they're not passing a law against that shit, and that shit's coming here. The games are still getting here. So all they're going to do is deliver more and more stuff at a faster pace. That's the big problem, is you're competing against one group that is arbitrarily going to be held to laws and another group that's not. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have laws.
Question of whether there's like a right, you could maybe a right to self-identity or something that you could include, like revise the Human Rights Charter from the United Nations, and then maybe enforce it through that and through the Security Council or whatever. But that would be difficult.
Vapor says, screw it, let the AI write the laws.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that shit? That would be nuts.
God.
What else do we got? Anything else that's been going on this week, or any other cool shit you guys have been doing? Been watching a ton of science stuff for some reason. I don't know what's got me into
science.
Read a insanely in-depth critique of cyberpunk books. In depth to the point where I've had to read paragraphs over and been like, what? Because it's like the high level deconstruction of Snow Crash or, you know, the cyberpunk RPG. That's actually been really enjoyable. Have you guys been reading anything?
I read a sci-fi book called Skyward. That's pretty cool. It's by Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, gotcha.
The guy normally does like epic fantasy, so it's kind of different from him doing like a sci-fi thing. It was pretty cool, I would say. Not that, you know, I'm not gonna write home about it, but it was enjoyable.
What about you, Silver? Any books?
Yeah, there's a graphic novel. If you can just give me a second, I can go fetch it.
Go grab it.
2 seconds.
He's got a 15-pound tome.
Ooh.
He's like, I bought this off of a skeleton. I've been messing around with a bunch of research papers about deconstructing writing and stuff. It's been really enjoyable to read. Especially, and then I sent you that one, the one
going
science
deep.
one.
Just
yeah,
like
I don't know what.
reading, man.
Yeah, I don't know what. I don't know what caused it. Sometimes I just get into that, especially when YouTube gets a little slower, and I'm not one for creating like. I have a very difficult time creating an arbitrary. I have a hard enough time creating the top games list because to me, it doesn't really fire me up unless it does. Like usually I have to find those games that fire me up, but I have a hard time arbitrarily creating a video. So sometimes, yeah, I'll just sit there and then my brain will be like, oh, you need to do something. And I'll start grabbing shit off Amazon. And lately, I don't know what it was. I don't know how it, but I think it was Rutledge University had this critique, and I was like, oh, I'll go ahead and grab it. And then I grabbed it and I was like, this is fantastic. Now, it's fantastic in the pinky up way. Like you and I would read a cyberpunk book and we might talk about it later and go, yeah, it's sort of different. You know, they did this. This is like biotech, where this one's cybertech, where this one's, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're critiquing inverse relationships between book number 1 and book number 3 and how one turns it to the mirrorverse, but one's not a mirrorverse.
Actually, that's inconsistent with...
yeah, they'll be like, actually, this isn't a mirror. It's actually a unfolding and a flipping inside out of the initial ideas of the character, who in this paragraph mentions this in book 1 and this in book 3. And I'm like, damn, it's fun to read, but they're obviously people who that's their thing. And by the way, I don't mean nerds. They're not like me. They're not like you. They're not like fans. They're, you know, college professors, or they're people who are like looking at I mean, they'll tell you the exact date. They'll be like, in the first Amazing magazine in 1963, this term was used, you know, and then it was bastardized by this. And then bastardized to me means bad, but to them just simply means exactly what it is. Segment, you know, like removed from the parent to mean something. Like... Yeah. Go ahead, Silver. What, go ahead and show us what art book you got.
It is Valhalla.
Ah.
It is
nice.
A series that was made pretty much when I grew up in the 80s by a Danish artist named Peter Madsen, who basically took it upon himself to adapt the Norse legends from the Edda involving the Norse gods into comic or graphic novel form with Thor, Odin, and all of them. And basically all the myths got put into graphic novel form. It also got adapted into a feature film, animated, and a couple of years ago they made a live action film as well, inspired by the series. But yeah, it's a really
that's
fun
a beautiful hardcover.
Yeah, that is
edition.
A pretty hardcover. Rainbow Bridge is on there, I think.
Yeah, the Bifrost leading up to Valhalla, up in the skies or up in the clouds. And you have like the art is a little old on the older side.
On the a little bit more of the classic look.
That's the legend with Thor disguising himself as a woman to go marry the giant that had stolen his hammer and then kill all the giants there. Just fun stories.
Did you randomly find that one?
Really fun way. Like no. I looked it up and picked it up from my child. Damn. To reconnect with my childhood, as it were.
Did you find it at a bookstore? Or did you find it online?
Comic store.
Dude, it's so great you have one, man. I wanted to run a bookstore for so long. The idea.
Yeah, we have probably maybe it's the largest comic bookstore in Scandinavia, maybe right here in Copenhagen.
Oh, damn.
It's huge.
Wait, KARAK, you want to run a bookstore?
And they sell like like they actually have like 4 different stores, like one that does like live action role play stuff, one that does board game stuff, one that does comics, graphic novels, and then one that does like wargaming.
Damn, that's cool. Yeah, I did want to, Johnny, when I was a kid.
KARAK's books.
Yeah, I was talking to the owner about it. That's what I wanted to do. I love the smell of books. I love reading. I love physical. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He's got a Remarkable. I've got a Remarkable. I've got a Kindle. They're not the same.
Not the same. No. I ordered a new book as well, and I got it physical because it's just...
Yeah, there's some, and it's hard for me to read physical, especially because of the surgery I had. So like sometimes I have to be I have to have certain light and stuff for close. But there's something that goes on when like you're just sitting on the deck or whatever, and you're reading a book and
literally turning the page.
Yeah, and it definitely causes me to lose sight of the world, which is nice. You know, because like you try to step away, but if you have your tablet, you have to turn off notifications, but you know they're there. You know that there's 10 emails you're waiting for. But if you have a book, unless it's a book, I don't understand. You know, if you have a book and you're out there, you can't be interrupted, and it's an awesome feeling. There's something about reading a book that I like. One of my friends marks up his books, and we've had actually knockdown, drag out arguments. So like he'll buy an RPG book and he'll dovetail, he'll fold over, you know, put shit in it, he'll circle things. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? I'm somebody who presses my books. So like I'll get done I'll try to not open it too far, and then I'll put it down and I'll put something on it to get it flat. Yeah. That's the nerd in me, and I don't know why I do it. But then he came over one time and he grabbed one of my books and he folded it backwards so he could read it by holding, you know, like it's a big RPG book, and he folded it
like a fucking pizza.
My God. I was like, what the fuck? I was ready to kill.
I was triggered like, just hearing
it was like he slapped my dog or something. I was just like, what are you doing right now? And he's like, what do you mean? And he's eating pizza. And he's like eating it over the top of the book, and I realized that's when I was a super like book nerd. I definitely like the smell of a book when you open it. I like everything to be, you know, perfectly smooth and stuff. It's so great when you find an old book also that's like in a back drawer somewhere. I'll be like, oh damn, I remember this book. Sit down and reread it. Remember 80% of it, but 20% feels new again.
I like rereading books sometimes too, because I already know. I like the story or whatever. I know what I'm going to get from it in a way, and I get to just re-experience
it. I'll go a couple years, and then I'll grab the book again, like I said. So 60, 70% I remember, but there's connecting things or little. And then what I like about rereading
you will have missed things too.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I didn't catch that.
You'll be like, oh, that was foreshadowing. I never, like, now I get it. Or sometimes I'll read a book and my brain will go, that doesn't make a lot of sense that they jumped to this conclusion, but whatever. And then finish the book, be like, that's a great book. Come back to it a year later and be like, oh, that's how they got there. That was good. You know, that was so good that they didn't say this is foreshadowing. You know, sometimes you'll get that in a movie or a book. You'd be like, okay, come on. Like, how did nobody know that's Palpatine? Come on. That's yeah, that kind of stuff is awesome. Anything else amazing or great been going on?
I have been I'm working on a new PC build, and I'm revamping my entire, or like simplifying, I would say, my entire setup, because it got to a point where I had 3 DSLR cameras connected to a streaming computer. I had a separate gaming computer playing the game, pumping the video into the streaming computer, and all this, like, just having to maintain 2 separate systems, all this shit. And, you know, every week something would stop working and I would need to troubleshoot it. Maybe it's the capture card, maybe it's the blah, blah, blah. So I'm going single PC. Right now I'm already like talking to you directly through my gaming PC. So I'm now like full single PC, but I'm also building a new PC and getting like a CPU upgrade. And because I'm doing that, I also have to upgrade my RAM and motherboard because those go together. And so it's going to be really nice. It's a bigger case that's going to have, you know, plenty of space for a radiator. So getting a nice radiator in there and learning how all that works. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and just taking the time to do it slowly, you know, placing the fan, choosing the fans I want exactly how I want them, and figuring it out. And this process of just distilling it down, you know, one good camera, that's, you know, you're good. One good camera, one good computer, just half the cables, right? It's so much cleaner, so much easier to...
Dude, this is, to me, a growth period for you that I've got to see, because I remember I had already gone through it when you started.
Yeah.
And you and I had multiple discussions, including multiple PCs. And I was like, man, I'm just saying. And by the way, nothing wrong with you going through it, because you could have also stuck with that. But I think PCs are better now. So one PC is a lot easier than it was 5 years ago. But it is interesting because what you got into, multiple screens, all that stuff, was more of the Twitch personality kind of thing than, let's say, a YouTuber who, like me, might talk to the camera or might record footage and show a video. And I think that a lot of people, for a small amount of time, overspent a great deal of money or time or confusion or what have you, because the idea, it made sense because especially when Twitch was new and YouTube was newer than it is now, there was this thought process that you needed all that. And I think one of the nice things now is you're finding, I think production has gone way beyond. It's the thing that's super high. You get like paid editors. You know, I know some paid editors who are getting more than I make in a month just for editing other YouTubers' videos. Like, it's insane because the production on that part might be super high, especially if they have a camera and they're walking around or they're doing stuff. Or you know, but it has been really interesting to see the switch between what used to be sort of required or expected versus what really isn't required or expected anymore. And especially when you're new to something, I did it as well, man. I had the same issue that you did. I was like, especially because I live in an old house, so I was always buying that audio stuff till I luckily found one thing, but I was constantly trying to buy myself out of a problem. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, what is that problem? And are you adding problems by getting multiple things, which is what I did for the first 2 or 3 years. I mean, there were some people who helped me. Total Biscuit helped me. When I went on Total Biscuit's podcast, I remember he had a pretty shit camera. And I remember going like, that's interesting. And the reason why he was able to do it is because personality, number one. And then number two, it's because I think for whatever reason, there was no expectation that they would have 15 different angles and it would all be super shiny because he didn't care. It wasn't that kind of thing. So I got lucky in that the people I met up front first were people who are already minimalistic for the most part. So I didn't see that. And I got lucky because it was YouTube. I think on Twitch in particular, at least for a couple years there, you really did feel like you needed everything. I mean, even when we were streaming, my mentality was a little different when we were on Twitch than it is on YouTube, where I was like, you know, maybe you do need your 17 camera angles and you need a flashy jingle. I mean, I still had them, the little, you know, you've given me this much money, you know, what have you. And then I see on YouTube, that's just, for the most part, it's not much of a thing. You know, it's like you can just do you can get away with the minimalistic part, which is nice and cheaper, obviously, for a newcomer. It's also going to be less of a headache for you as you go into this, which is going to be great. Hopefully it's less of a headache. Hopefully it doesn't crash.
Ultimately, it just, you know, bring it back to the basics. And like you said, what gets you the interest of people is not having the 3 camera angles.
Right.
Like that can be a nice add-on, but it's really, you know, what are you delivering to people? You know, is it interesting? It really has to start there. Otherwise, you're putting the cart before the horse in a way.
It's like when I see a lot of people, I have no issue with this, but I don't understand it too well. I'll see people start a YouTube and instantly do a Patreon. Now that it's smart in one way that, hey, if somebody wants to give you money each month right away from nothing, that's also fine. But it also, at some point, I'm like, but why would I do, you know, I'm like, I don't really understand. It's a little early. You know, could you put a couple things out first? You know, do we need, I've seen people who we've gotten 10, you know, people from around the world. They're all going to come and join in on one YouTube channel. Let's open up a Patreon. They explode and then they shrink within a couple years because maybe a couple of them are the dynamic ones that people want to see. And you start getting that filtering. So it's nice for you being just you for the most part and your community that you figured out that you don't need all that. Instead, what you probably need is an easier device that maybe at this point, if you have an easy device, dude, I'm telling you right now, the easier it is, the more chance you're going to impromptu stream. And people do not understand just how useful an impromptu stream can be. Like, you just decide they've been very useful for us. Sony event came up. Abzy was on. Abzy's like, hey, man, I'll sit down. You, Silver, Reg, everybody, Go Burns, everybody's sat in on multiple events. People are like, hey, I'll do the event. It's on a day we didn't think of, but whatever. Yeah, we'll watch that together. And that's been either money or subscribers where people are like, hey, this is actually fun to watch the occasional. And that was only available to me because I didn't have a bunch of devices. Because if I did, you know me, man, the same thing with the VR headset. You're like, it's right there, and I got a game, but I'm not putting that thing on. It takes
like you go to turn it on, and oh, my Elgato fucking capture card now doesn't work, and I need to. It's gone, right? The inspiration is gone. The impulse is gone.
Yeah. Powder Cake says, how much percentage does Patreon take? I think they're at 30 now, but then that's pre-taxed. So technically, about 50% of Patreon. Is it 30 or is it 15? But about, once you look at taxes, it's about 50% for Patreon. It's not really better anywhere. Most places, by the time you're done with taxes, fees.
I think I've heard that OnlyFans is better, KARAK. Just saying.
I mean, there are people, dude, I put up my videos on Pornhub. I told you that. When Pornhub originally was big and they were doing some game stuff before they got in trouble for shit, I put up occasional videos there to see, like, because, gonna be honest, some of the people there, gamers, if not a good majority. So
you'll catch a couple gamers.
I was like, man, you know, I had always stated in our Discord,
there's some pipeline.
Pornhub should have just been called VidHub and made their own YouTube competitor. Like, I had thought that for a long time, because there's really no driver of technology that equals adult entertainment. There just isn't. I mean, most entertainment we're using is based or was driven, whether it be CD, VR, has been driven a good amount by adult entertainment.
I'm just thinking of the SEO when someone is searching like family therapy and your video.
My video pops up.
Your video pops up.
Come for the boobs, stay for the ACG. Yeah, I mean, you know, in OnlyFans, the one thing that I have thought about is, so patrons somewhat political. They've kicked a couple political people off, and I don't track who those are, but I know their names because I lost a shit ton of subscribers when they did. And I've thought about like OnlyFans, because then you can say, you know, and luckily YouTube doesn't hit me for the cussing very often. Even if I cuss at the starting, there's a chance they won't hit me. If I cuss at the end, there's a chance they'll hit me. You don't really know. But I've been like, oh, but then I thought, you know what? We joke pretty much to the level I want to anyway here on YouTube. But if that had continued, I would have probably tried that to see if I could just get away with talking. Because sometimes you're mad about something and you just sort of want to say it, or you don't want to deal with the algorithm.
And we definitely try to stay fairly clean. You know, we'll drop the occasional F-bomb.
I'm going to tell you the honest truth. I don't feel like I try, and I'm pretty comfortable with where we are.
We try to stay clean, Johnny.
You two may try to stay clean.
All the double entendres and innuendo.
Yeah, Johnny's got a lot of double meanings that slip in there. Now that I think about it, Johnny's one of those guys that like he likes
a couple ones, whether it's on purpose or not. No, it's like the Simpsons. Only the people who know will understand it. The
Simpsons
kids won't.
Was dirty as shit. There are some Simpsons stuff I'm not even going to say right now, because they're dirty as shit. And I was like,
but as a kid, you hear it and you're like,
dude, I didn't pick up on it, man. It took me like 10 years to then be like, you know, rewatching it because I'm a fan of Simpsons, and be like, wait, what? Like, what exactly did that mean? Which is like normal cartoons, right? You know, because adults are drawing them usually. So there's usually, you know, there's going to be a joke in there. But yeah, I've definitely, I mean, in the past I had thought about it, especially because, the ability, the freedom to, the thing is YouTube's got its own issue, but it's not about what we can talk about. I don't really worry about that. I mean, I think here I worry about the algorithm being weird, especially now that we found the podcast. Like, once I started talking to another person who just moved their podcasts and the difference they saw, and I was like, oh shit, so it does. Because for us, it helped dramatically. We were getting like 1,000 subscribers per podcast. It helped. And then they changed the algorithm, and I was like, it's probably nothing. And then I realized, oh, no, it is something. But it's just a sign of the times. There'll be another company that comes around too. I mean, Twitch is not the last one. Look how many, remember the one that we joined? So there's Kick, but we joined another one for a very small amount of time that took Bitcoin even. It was, I think it started with an S. Because I remember Azraelin streamed there for a while too. I think I still have an account there.
Oh, yeah, an American one, right?
Yeah, we streamed there at least 3 or 4 times, and the only reason I streamed there is because at the time the Bitcoin, you know, was like people were trading it more, so it was like, you know, it would end up paying off. I don't even know if I've taken any money out of that. I don't even know if we got money, but I know we streamed there for a little while. The multiple streaming, I'll probably stream back on Twitch a little bit too. Once we move the podcast, I thought that might be like a place to go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Everybody's a little different, though. You got your different kind of fans. You got your YouTube fans.
Yeah, different communities. They don't really mix up too much.
And I'm sure there's bots there, but man, they're bad on YouTube. Dude, I post...
Are they?
No lie. If I post... I can guarantee you, if I post a review, I cannot post the review and then get into comments before there's at least 4. And they say stuff like, your videos are so interesting. How do you hold like, I don't know. How do you hold the interest of your viewer for a particular amount? I'm like, what the fuck? That's not a... It might be a real person, but they got to be the nicest, like most... And by the way, they only watched 0.2 seconds of a 40-minute video, so it can't be real.
There you go.
Yeah. I treat them the same way I treat when somebody says, oh, you know, KARAK doesn't like this. And I'm like, dude, I posted the video 3 seconds ago. You couldn't have watched all of that amount of time. But yeah, you get those weird things. What else have we been seeing or doing lately? Has there been anything else to discuss? I'm not seeing any really new news hitting the scene. Grand Theft Auto 6 among exempt video... Okay, so there is the news. IGN said Grand Theft Auto 6 among some games exempt from the video game actor strike. So what we talked about earlier. And then, I don't know if you guys saw, I don't know if you care, Hunt Showdown's getting a new map. I'm really excited for that, man. It's called... Mamon. And that's coming out in a couple weeks, I think. Let's see, what else? Looking here at the news. Not much else. There was a new Double Fine. By the way, anybody who wants to understand development, go to Double Fine's YouTube channel and start watching their documentary on the making of Psychonauts 2. It is incredible. One of the if you want to like learn anything about game development, it is a great place to start. It's 33 episodes as of today. And have you guys seen this?
No.
I'm telling you, you would love it. It's Schaefer. It's all the shit that goes on behind the scenes. It's people unhappy, people happy, celebration, the difficulty of making a game with 200 people or whatever that number is that they have, and the difficulties of getting everybody in getting your ducks in a line. It's fantastic. That'll be it for us. I want to say once again, thank you to the Fallout London guys for jumping in. And if you get a chance, make sure to go check out that mod. Be aware it is a mod. And, it has its fair share of problems, but I'm pretty excited overall for it. That'll be it for us. I want to thank these guys again. Johnny, once again, you already talked about it once, but where do you stream and what are you streaming tomorrow morning?
Johnny plays live on Twitch tomorrow morning, American time, 2 p.m. UK time, doing some SnowRunner, and people are welcome to join and help out.
Doing some SnowRunner, and I did promise Johnny that I would jump in, and that is a promise I, at some point, plan on holding up.
some bonding over...
Yeah, some male bonding over 4x4s, some redneck talk. I'll teach you redneck slang. It'll be awesome. Peace out, everybody. I hope you have an awesome end of your week and a great weekend.
Take care.